Welcome to this week's Caribbean Thought Leadership, your number one Caribbean focus session on technology thought leadership. I am Professor Sean Thorpe, your host for this week's session, and my co-host is Dr. Arnett Campbell. So this week we look at running a new technology startup in this pandemic. And we have a lively panel this evening that will share in some riveting discussions on some very important pointers relating to this topic. As we go through the pandemic, it is something very important to think about. You know, we have many graduates from the university, particularly from the School of Computing, I'm sure, are questioning whether or not jobs have been dislocated in the traditional job markets, or they may equally be thinking about avoiding the regular blue collar type jobs and moving into their own startups, or white collar jobs and moving into their own startups. These are things to really deliberate on. If government needs to change some of its provisions to help young startups, we should be considering that. But for the discussion today, we're going to look very carefully at the following concerns. You know, the pointers on my dashboard reflect well. You know, we have Ray Sean from St. Vincent. We have Art from the JCS New York chapter. We have Trevor Forrest from CEO of 876 Solutions. We have Conrad Matheson, you know, from Pixel Perfect. You know, we have Kate Joy Watson, who is a solo entrepreneur, starting her own book company. We have Cavell, who also started her own STEM educational company. You know, this is an interesting lineup today. And of course, as we take open guests, we are not averse to their views. I have a student here as well, Theodore Prendergast, a final year student from the university. So this should make very interesting conversation. At this point, we're going to jump right in. All right, so hope you enjoy this week's session. Leave your comments at the bottom of the post, please. All right, and look forward to the usual feedback at the end.
To do things. So if there are individuals out there who believe they have a solution to the problem, to the supply chain problem, in any industry or in general, then I think this is the ideal time for them to start a business. Because this pandemic just shows us the weaknesses in the infrastructure that we presently have, more particularly in the Caribbean. And I think if persons have ideas, then this is the time to step forward and put it in place. But I know also with that, and I believe then maybe you may get into it a little later on, but financial assistance to help people start businesses is one of the challenging aspects of that.
Definitely so. Yes, indeed. So you
are
saying, yes, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, I think this is the ideal time for persons who want to start their own business to get into it, especially tech business. There's a space, as I mentioned, for an improved supply chain, not just in the Caribbean, in the world over.
Okay.
And I think there's a lot of institutions that may need to make it a lot easier for persons to start a business by helping them financially.
Okay. Excellent. So you got the ball rolling there, Ray Sean, and thank you for that. So I'm going to move it around the table just to get the views as they come in. Let's start. Well, okay, I'm going to actually move it probably to one of the ladies next. Probably Joy or Keth Joy could weigh in on that view. Any thoughts on that particular question? Should we be starting new companies now in this pandemic? Rashawn says yes, there's a big space for supply chain as the example. If the ladies are not ready, I'm going to keep moving it around the table.
Yeah.
So probably I'll go to Art next, then followed by Conrad, if I'm not hearing from the ladies. Yes.
Sure, Sean. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you quite well, Art.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
A pleasant good evening.
I support, what Rashawn said. In fact, in a very odd way, this last 12 or 15 months has presented an appetite for change on the demand side. Folks who never would have accepted ideas around new ways of working seemingly have no choice anymore. The roadblocks that would have normally been presented, at least people are now giving consideration to lowering the roadblocks and in many ways moving them. So there's a demand for a new way of receiving services, which therefore means there is an environment, I would suggest it's a target-rich environment for outside-the-box thinking entrepreneurs to extend services that were delivered in a legacy way, and to extend them to present new, more efficient ways of providing services to clients. When you think about the fact that the norm as it regards the definition of an office, that has been obliterated.
Obliterated completely.
And persons who felt that, the only way a staff member can be productive is if they could stare at them, find themselves having to simply accept that that is a last century way of thinking. The way we purchase goods is going to accelerate now by virtue of the fact that this radical overnight shift has occurred. Organizations who felt that they could continue to simply be a brick and mortar channel, single channel framework, must now accept the fact that the customers, or at least a percentage of customers, aren't coming back. They're not going to come to the store anymore, for whatever reasons. This has accelerated the pace of change. Therefore, the entrepreneurs must be paying attention to this. There's going to be a redefinition of what BPO means. What is a call center? Is a call center large buildings in Portmore with hundreds of people sitting in it? I would suggest not. If you look at the infection rate in Jamaica during the high point, the call centers played a huge role in driving up the infection curve, Sean.
That's correct. That's correct, Rod.
So if I'm running a BPO, I must now start to rethink what is the definition of a call center. You're going to see new versions of that popping up. All right. The way that you deliver your groceries, the way you close a loan, right? That must change as well. Because if you are buying a house right now, Sean, and you're in the middle of a lockdown like you're in right now in Jamaica, what are you going to do? Stop buying homes? You're going to stop having mortgage closings?
Yes.
Or you're going to find a way to close online? I would suggest you're going to start seeing people signing contracts online using e-signature. So you think about all I've said in 3 minutes.
It's huge. It's
haven't even scratched the surface yet. The time is now more than ever right for creative, bright entrepreneurs to really bring the things that they thought they would have brought 5 years from now, to bring it to the market now, because the appetite is there, whether they want to or not. People are being forced to accept your story now. So yeah. Like
excellent point. There's a complete decimation of the market. Essentially, we are finding that it's a complete pivot. I really appreciate this point. Welcome to Caribbean Thought Leadership. It's a Sunday evening here in Kingston, Jamaica, and we have, an excellent panel of just concerned Jamaicans and Caribbean nationals, both here in Jamaica and the diaspora, talking about some very important things on this Sunday evening. We're talking about the whole space of, tech startup initiatives and their whole relevance in this pandemic. I mean, where are we heading? We're actually on the first question based on this dashboard, so it gives everyone a chance who has just come in, and I'm thanking you all for joining us. Especially, I'm seeing a lot more ladies this Sunday afternoon, so I welcome them in particular, gentlemen, to have them, weigh in on a very important topic. So I thank Art just now for that particular contribution. But let's keep the floor open and ask other members of this panel. And the floor is still open. I know I asked the ladies just now, didn't hear from anyone just yet, but I probably defer to Conrad and then put it back around the table. Is it the right time to start starting up a new company, especially a tech company? You heard Art, you heard Rashawn. Any views additional to those in the context of the question?
Yes, Conrad here, Sean.
Yes, man. How are you doing? Good evening, sir. Good evening.
So I love the earlier points about appetite for the market, but I would say, as a person being in the market for some time, starting as a startup, maybe not really would consider myself a startup, being that it's just a couple years. I've been here for a little while in the business now.
Yes, that's correct.
The Jamaican population, in terms of even with what is going on here, some businesses are still hoping that things go back to normal. I don't think we are taking that into consideration.
Oh, really? Yes.
They are hoping.
Yes.
So there's an education to all of us here that are in the space, CIOs or persons are here, to start a conversation, and podcasts like this could play a very integral role in getting them ready. Because what is happening is, yes, they feel like, yes, we need to do this now, but we're doing this temporarily. So it's a shift. It's a shift of resources instead of an embodiment of a hybrid, right? So it's they're no longer thinking about it as electric and gasoline cars. They're thinking, oh, it's gonna be electric for now, and then when things go back to normal, I can go back to gasoline cars, if you understand. So they're not thinking about this delivery.
You are right.
Delivery system that is happening now, that is getting companies like a mail pack to deliver your groceries at home. They're saying, okay, that's for now, because as soon as this pandemic goes, we'll get back to the store.
And we could be in the pandemic for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Even here at the University of Technology and many of the local universities, there is this belief that once we take the vaccine, everything can go back to normal. You send back all the children to school, etc. So you are making a very valid point there.
So the investment that is required to prepare for the future won't necessarily come now if you're going to start out the business. And I'm saying this because in 2017, when I won 2 or 3 local and international awards for chatbots, and I would start running around chatbots to Jamaican companies, they said to me, they just signed a massive contract for BPOs. So they're not spending any money, millions of dollars with me.
So let me just put a plug here. This is CEO Conrad Matheson from Pixel Perfect, who is based at the Technology Innovation Center at UTech Jamaica, marketing company extraordinaire, big in data analytics these days. That's a shortened version of who you are, Conrad, and excellent points you're making, so that everybody is in podcast land and Zoom land knows what we're talking about. Excellent. Please continue the point, sir.
Right. So when you go around shopping it around in 2017, saying, hey, this can save you a lot of money for 2 reasons. The young people we have recognized are texting companies more than they're calling companies.
Yes.
So these call centers won't be effective for these 18 to 25-year-old that are using WhatsApp is how they want to communicate to companies instead of a call. They do not want to wait on the line and listen to an operator or the little music for 2 or 3 minutes. So if you want to connect with them, let's invest here. And many of them didn't, a few of them did. So what I'm saying is, this time, even in the pandemic,
yes,
the priority for some of these things are still not being done.
yes.
So what I'm saying is, not every Jamaican company or Caribbean company right now is looking at the fact that their business model needs to change.
Yes.
It's a pivot is the conversation we're hearing. Not that it needs to change. We just pivot for a temporary moment so that we can go back to normal when everybody's vaccinated.
And whenever that is, which we don't know.
And whenever that is.
Wow.
So I'm just saying, it's a conversation now of embodying a conversation of, hey, it's time to change, and a change of a hybrid, and your business models need to be looking at a hybrid model of half in person if it's school and half online. How do we get the merger to work? And I think that's the best conversation that we need to be having to empower the thoughts that we are having now.
Welcome that point, brother.
Sean,
yes.
Conrad,
yeah.
That's a killer point. I think if you kind of go back to the thesis of the question, though, is on the supply side, which is where you said, is the time right for more persons like yourself to bring the ideas, which in and of themselves will help the demand side that's sitting on the sideline to begin to realize that, look, there are commodities, which is a point coming in about 2 or 3 bullets down, that are out there then that can help me then make the decision to go hybrid, to your point. There's going to be a spectrum of organizations that are just naturally forward thinking, and CIOs who are looking for a business case, Sean, and just couldn't have made it. And this is like manna from heaven. All right. I can speak from a lived experience to that, because I can tell you that transforming a 75-year-old company that's already doing $180 million US a year, everyone's comfortable with the 85 stores. And now suddenly we realize we can redefine our call center to be more of a virtual concierge kind of service, so we can offer a more intimate sort of service delivery mechanism. Now, trying to tell them this a year ago, 10 months ago, would have run into a lot of, well, I don't know, do we need to? And now it's sort of, hey, can we get started? So what you find, it's the psychology of human behavior, right?
Yes, yes.
In The Prince by Machiavelli, what he said was, because of man's incredulity, he will not accept anything new until he's experienced it. And so us guys on this side have now an opportunity to help them experience it so they can begin to accept it. Nothing that we're discussing today is really absolute, right? I mean, you're going to have some who are just never going to change, and that's life.
That's
a number of companies, though, Sean, Conrad, will be left. That's life.
Exactly.
Because change comes. You don't have to agree with it. It comes, and we're actually in it right now. And those on the service delivery side, which is where the whole thesis is coming from, we need to see that all the bright ideas, let's go work on them, and let's start bringing them to market, because there is an appetite.
And a voracious appetite. Excellent. So basically, this first question is telling us some very important points. There's a whole decimation of a market that will be creating new opportunities for new companies. So those companies with the old adage that things will resume tomorrow might be in for a thing of a lifetime. So I love those points. I love these comments. This is Caribbean Thought Leadership on a Sunday afternoon at 4:30 from 4:30 p.m. Listen, some very bright ideas on where we should be envisioning for the future in terms of startup initiatives in this pandemic. I saw Ray Sean's hand up, but Ray Sean, are you still, you want to make a point just now? Because I want to extend more persons just quickly weighing in. I'm probably getting some of these ladies' ideas as well to join in on the call. I see Vivian and Joyce might open. But Ray Sean, yes, hi, go ahead, please.
It's Keith Joy Watson.
Oh, Keith Joy. Thank you, Keith Joy. Afternoon, how are you?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm okay.
Neighbor,
I just finishing.
Yes, my good neighbor.
I just finished the fish. I wanted to speak, but the frying pan was going in the background, so I secluded myself right now.
Understood.
And I mean, I listened to the first speaker and then Conrad, and I'm reminded of So, but anybody remember BlackBerry?
Yes, BlackBerry the phone, yes.
Used to sell them.
When the CEO was refusing to go, that the screen that we have now, that nice, beautiful screen we have, he said, no, people still want the buttons. And even though the business model changed and persons were gravitating towards this flat screen, he held on to it, and now BlackBerry is a thing of the past.
Indeed.
So it is instructive.
Yeah, I think the only thing left of BlackBerry is at University of Waterloo in Canada, where I visited in 2018-19. They only have a research lab left. That's it.
How unfortunate. And he was at the very head of the whole
head of the game.
business, and now he has been left behind. So I run a new company. It's a publishing company, and I run it online. I publish ebooks, and it's something very new for me. I started it in the height of the pandemic last year.
Yes.
And taking this kind of company to the Caribbean, because I realized that we're not, even after the pandemic and after the vaccines, in education, every textbook you're going to need to use. There's no reason why it can't be an ebook.
Yes.
So I started this company.
You just formed this company. Excellent.
Just formed it. Because when, as the gentleman said before, there is no going back to what we used to do before. Classes will remain online. There are more people who will be enrolled because of that very nature. But I think the two things will coexist. There will be face-to-face and there will be classes online. It will not stop. So I thought this is the best business to go into at this time.
And I have to encourage you. I have to encourage you. Very good.
Yeah, and I mean, it's indicative, and in history is when things are down, is in the depression and those times that you think new thoughts, because you have to. You have to pivot, as Conrad said. But the first gentleman spoke about taking a loan now in a time like this, and I have some experience with this. Dr. Thaw will know that it's a struggle to get a loan out here, because you have to do so much legwork and running up and down to get this thing done. But houses are being built every day. The booming industry in this pandemic is construction, and those must be sold. Mortgages must be made. Yep. And so they had to figure out a way, even if it was just a temporary pivot. But guess what? The customer will always determine how they want to proceed after this. So it's more than a psychological shift they're going to need to go through, not just in mortgage, not just in education. It is going to have to be a changing of the minds from the very top. And maybe some of them will be left behind, like BlackBerry. Did you guys know that NCB no longer has tellers at the UA branch?
Yes.
And it's not a pivot. They have been removed, and the drywall take over there, so now something totally different is there, because they have been prepping, as it were, for a pandemic.
Yes, yes. Excellent. So
and that is one of the financial institutions that will come out ahead, like China, out of this pandemic. Okay. While the others are still grappling with their supervision, looking over people's shoulders to see if you're hardly working or you're hard at work.
You tell them, Keith Joy. Tell them.
Yes. So Keith Joy is a social scientist, former banker. She has all kinds of acumen that I can't even describe on this program, but it's some very wonderful points being raised there this evening on Caribbean thought leadership. Will the whole space for tech companies be able to take off in this pandemic, or are we fooling ourselves? The panelists here this evening are saying, listen, it is a complete decimation of the potential markets, or the existing markets as rather as we know them, such that in this chaos, it is time to find order. I love this conversation, and we're moving around the table.
Sure. Before you move to the next person, I just want to close my point, Connor here. So what I was saying is not that I wasn't saying the business, we shouldn't start new businesses. I was just saying the persons who are starting businesses must take into consideration that the market behavior is still the same at the moment, right? Yes, they're not there yet. right? So it's
Yes.
not that I'm saying do not come up with a new business. I am
The
in
mindset,
the,
yes, yes.
the mindset hasn't changed just yet.
That's
So
true.
what we need to be clear on is I read this book called Spin Selling, and it says is how to create is to put value as the starting point instead of a service. So if these new businesses can just say, I'm going to go into tech, they need to say, I'm going into tech to solve this problem.
Yes.
And it's clear when they go to the market, the value that is going to be solved, especially in the immediate short term. So if they can do that, then I think it's a very good time for them to start the business. But if when they're thinking, oh, I'm going to do websites, I build websites. Well, no, it's not the time to just say I'm going into the website business. However, if you can say I can build e-commerce website that can generate 5 to 10% more of your business, and you know exactly how to do that, then a company who is not making that 10% revenue would see exactly your value.
Okay,
Well,
so the value creation, a sort of a value creation framework, very good point, very good point.
That's the value. That's the value. So
Value.
when I looked at the education market, you just spoke about ebooks. When we did a virtual tour using AR recently for a school, and we say, hey, here is, and you can't carry the kids to Green Grotto Cave, or you can't carry them here. Here is an AR, here's a VR that can, here's an AR, because we couldn't do VR because you need a headset. Here's an AR that could get you that. Then a company could say, oh, a school could say, oh, well, we could take this because that's saving the school trip money, and we could use the school trip money towards this. So they could call the parents and say, we're going to pay for something looking like this. So they still experience a geography experience, but they are not physically leaving their home.
That's right, that's right. And
So
AR is augmented reality,
augmented reality. So yes. Then at the end of the day, the value was created, and we as a service provider could have provided something we never used to do before. We were never in the education system, but we had AR skills long time. So we pivot and go in a new market. The value was clear out the gate.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's where I'm talking about.
Excellent point. Excellent point, Conrad. So you see, as we move this around, so we're still on question one in terms of where the market spin up will be. I think Rashawn had his hand up, and then Joy. I think Joy wanted to say something. I should allow the ladies to speak, please. I don't want to be held liable.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
My point was made earlier, so go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. Joy, you were going to make a comment. The floor is yours.
Well, I just wanted to say that I, for the most part, agree with everything that has been said. But if I go back to the question is now a good time, considering the pandemic, to start a business? And I say absolutely yes. And it shouldn't just be because of a pandemic, right? I think you have to look at what opportunities are present in the current environment. And also to think about the fact that the pandemic has not only affected Jamaica and the US and Canada, it is worldwide, right? And some countries, I don't think will ever go back to the way things were. And so persons who are looking to start a new business, I think this is a perfect opportunity to see what can be done, where is there a need? And as somebody's talked about before about the value, where can we add value? Because you have to have a need, right? There has to be a need for you to be able to have a successful venture.
Excellent
so I
point.
think, yes, back to the question, is this a good time? Somebody also brought up the point of, what is that name of the BlackBerry? And I can also talk about, if you remember, the Kodak case, right? Where, right? Okay, so there is an abundance of need. Also, I don't know about some of the other, like what's going on in Jamaica, but I know here in the US, a lot of employees, workers do not want to go back to the way things were.
All right.
They don't want to go into a building, so to speak. They would rather stay home and work virtually. So I think there are lots of opportunities for tech companies. I'm not a tech person, but I'm sure there are many opportunities for tech companies.
Excellent, Joy. Excellent point. This is Caribbean Thought Leadership,
Yeah.
Technology Thought Leadership. We don't only just talk tech, but everything that tech needs to impact. So you are very much on point, Joy, as it relates to the concern and the point you just raised. So far, we are in major agreement. I welcome all my colleagues who are joining the call here. I'm seeing Mr. Stanford Graham, within the School of Computing. I see Dr. Annette Campbell joining as well. I'd like to also welcome Carmina MacArthur, who is one of our past graduates and member of board. And I'm seeing quite a few persons joining here. I welcome you and feel free. And Vivian, Dr. Forrester, thank you for also joining, from the JCS.
I also want to, Sean, I just want to add one more point.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Someone mentioned that there is, has to be a mindset. But
yes.
As I think maybe Art had mentioned this to me at one point,
yes.
Sometimes we have to tell people what they need, right?
Well, yes, that's true.
And so I think that's definitely something to consider.
Exactly. So excellent points, colleagues, and as persons join and listening and understand what is going on this Caribbean Thought Leadership, we are of the view, generally so far, that new companies can be formed in this pandemic, and technology companies in particular. So we have been hearing some very vibrant conversations around this, ranging from the creation of value that organizations need to bring to the table, the whole space of disruption, and what that brings to the table in the face of new companies presenting themselves, and stepping back and realize that in this chaos of what is called a pandemic, there is order and there is opportunity. So I like where this conversation is going. To keep it moving along, I might not overemphasize the question any further, but as other persons on the floor here would like a chance probably to speak on things presented, I'm really going to now jump into this next question, but I'm going to still open the floor that anybody can take it, and they may be able to connect questions as we go along. So if you are saying, my colleague, if you are saying on this Sunday evening that we can form these new companies, well, I put it to us then, considering the times, how do we then build a kind of startup that will be lasting or sustainable, that can scale the sustainability? Is this a trick question? Is this a silver bullet question? I'm opening the floor. I'm opening the floor to you all again, and I'm going to ask the ladies to jump in here. Gentlemen, I'm going to also ask the ladies to jump in and share their views as we go along, to support the discussions as we put here. But what would be the sustainability model for putting a startup? Because we have always heard globally that over 90% of startups fail within 12 to 24 months. It's a well understood piece of academic literature. I mean, the Harvard Business Reviews and everything else that you can put your hands on. But let's hear from where you sit today in 2021. What would, in your mind, be very much important to ensure that there's sustainability, more so now in this pandemic? The floor is open.
Hello.
Yes.
This is Keisha.
Hi, Keisha. Good afternoon. Yes, Keisha Gay.
Yes,
Hi.
good afternoon.
A pleasant welcome.
Thanks. We're looking from a perspective of working in an organization and trying to sell the concept of to point out that now is the time to invest more. There's a lot more openness to it now because of the pandemic. So I'm getting a lot more cooperation with that. So one of the things I would think that is that I don't know if maybe it is more communication, more marketing that probably tech companies may need to do to get, to invite communication with the organizations. But one of the things that I worry about as an IT manager at my organization is that if I'm going to work with a tech startup, I want to know that that tech startup is going to be there for certain things, that they're not going to fold and leave my organization stranded. So I need to know that there's sustainability as well from them. I want to also know that if times and technologies are changing, that tech startup is also able to change so that my organization can move with that tech startup. So those are my points.
So that's a very important way to start the second question. So you're already on the point that, listen, startup, you need to demonstrate your commitment. Usually commitment comes with track record and time. That's what Keisha is indicating from where she sits here. And Keisha is a past member of staff of the School of Computing, and she's IT manager at the Racing Commission, Ms. Anderson. Thank you for that wonderful.
It is Racing Commission.
Racing Commission. I thank you very much for that excellent point on the build out of startups being sustainable. So colleagues, taking Keisha's point, what are your views in this conversation about how then we build sustainability and to be able to support what Keisha is asking for? If services are to be offered, relating to this space to companies like hers, what's the viewpoint? So the floor is open, and I'm allowing persons to engage on a first come first served basis in this very enlightening conversation this afternoon on tech.
Good evening, Dr. Thorpe and everyone. Carmina MacArthur here.
Hi, Carmina. Good evening. Thank you for joining.
No problem. All right. I've been listening to everybody, and as it relates to building a startup that is sustainable, I realize for a lot of companies that, sometimes, the startup, it's established based on a particular need in the industry, right? What happens over a period of time is that, the startup going on and becomes profitable, and, everybody becomes comfortable, with, what the profits are looking like. But then, there's this, I guess I can coin it as a digital disruption. That I think this is something that is constantly happening. And I think that there are companies that just need to be able to adapt and learn to transform, build out a model that allows them to I don't want to use the word mutate, but, change when, based on the needs and how, can you provide more value in terms of where you're already offering value. Things and times are going to change, technology advances and such. And I do realize that a lot of companies, they come in and they become comfortable and then they stop researching. So a part of being sustainable is being able to adapt over a period of time.
Excellent point. So you're saying, well, okay, the companies who want a skin in the game need to demonstrate that they're in this and have a serious game face, as the sports analogies would normally say. And that game face must demonstrate that they are up to date, they're doing their research, they have the facts at their fingertips as to what they're doing. And it would also demonstrate to companies like Keisha that they are actually very serious. So I take that point indeed. So probably there are a set of characteristics or a toolkit for what accounts for a startup company being sustainable that we really need to understand. Probably a little toolkit or a stack. But I want others to weigh in. Who is that? Who is that? Joy? Who is that?
It's Keith, but Stanford has his hand up. I can't figure out how to get my little hand up like that, so I'll speak after Stanford. Mine not working.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll allow you to do that after. All right, Stanford.
I'll put your hand up for you.
All right, Stanford, the floor is yours.
Click on the reaction.
Yeah, click on the reactions at the bottom of the screen.
And you'll see the option.
Yes.
Somebody tried Zoom, man. This Zoom is 3.0. All right, thank you.
Yes. All right. So Stanford and then Keith, in that order.
All right. No problem. Yes. Good afternoon, Dr. Professor Thorpe and all the other person on this Zoom session. today it's very useful that we're having these type of conversations. One of the things that I would want to point as an entrepreneur myself with a few business that I have
Stanford, you're going in and out.
Sorry, one of the things that I have learned is the intellectual capital that comes to the table. I strongly now believe in partnerships. If I'm going into a business today, having assessed the demand, having assessed the different types of demand that the market need, it's important that we develop partnership with other persons who have specialized skills to satisfy those demands that is there. So you probably even need
Stanford, you're going in and out.
Hello?
Going in and out, but I'm getting the essence of what he's saying though. Stanford, you're going in and out, but you're saying you need to build good cross fertilization teams that can deliver as a part of that startup initiative. I really take that point. That's a really brilliant point you have made there.
Yes, I'm a little bit better to the Wi-Fi now. Are you hearing me better?
Okay, I'm hearing you, man. Go ahead.
Great. Yes. So I was saying, one of the things that I've learned is the intellectual capital that comes to the table. It is not adequate for a person just to put monies on the table. Whilst that is good, what is really more beneficial is different ideas coming to the table with trying to find solutions in a particular area. So even if you partner with a non-traditional IT company, let's say, as one of the presenters stated, a hardware company or a normal brick and mortar company that have an inventory, and you suggest that you can put in the web interface, you probably want to partner with somebody else who know how to use social media marketing, somebody else who know how to manage the financing, so that people can specialize and focus on the areas that they can add greatest value to. So I would suggest, if we're going into business, even more so now, that we consider having partners with different skill set and working a synergistic way to solving problems within a particular area. And I think that can drive sustainable growth and overcome the chance of failure within the 2 months or 2 years that you had indicated, Professor Clark. So those are my technical points.
Excellent point, Stanford. I really thank you for that. There's a stack we're building out here. This is very good. So the research and then the cross-fertilization of teams. Kate, George, the floor is yours again, please. Please go ahead.
Thank you. There's a intellectual that I like to listen to on TED Talks. His name is Ernesto Ciroli. He has an institute and he's like a serial, what can I call him? A serial entrepreneur maker. That's my term for him. And what he says is something along the lines that Stanford just said. Maybe Stanford don't even realize that he said it. Even though we're in this time now where technology is going to drive the next millennium, there are some things that hold true, regardless if you have an analog business or you have a tech business. There are some things that still hold true. You need 3 people to run a business. You need the ideas guy. And Stanford just said it. You're going to need the marketer. And you're going to need the money guy. Stanford just said it. The money guy deals with just the money. Even if he has the money, he knows where to get the money, or he's good with money. And he can't pitch the idea because he's gonna make rubbish of it. You send the marketer for that. So if you're pitching into racing commission, you do not send the ideas guy, because he is so in love with his idea of this tech. He can write algorithms all day long, but he can't sell it. You send the marketer to do that. And you don't send the money guy to racing commission because he is stingy. He's going to want a big contract and he doesn't want any great overheads. So we have to still think of running our startups like that. Right now on Netflix, there's a show named Startup. I'm binge watching it. It's called Startup. The Ideas girl is also, she started her own Bitcoin company. but she has a whole heap of sociological things that are holding her back. She's Latino in the US, so she can't get an investor. They think she's out of her mind, but her algos work. So she gets a money guy, but the money guy is actually a drug dealer. So you what I'm talking about? The three things is like the trilogy. No, we're not doing that. No. But the trilogy is those three things.
Yes.
And Mr. Cirali that I told you about, he talked about this. These things hold true. And that is one of the reasons why startups are having this high attrition rate in and out of the market. Because the ideal person, the person that like Pixel Perfect, if Canon was a guy who can run these algos, but he can't sell to save his life, but he has to do it because he can't afford to get a marketing guy. He's gonna be hamstrung, and before you know it, God forbid, Pixel Perfect has a 10-year lifespan.
Okay, so the short version of what you just said is that he must have an investor.
Yeah, if he found the trilogy, if he finds the trilogy, we're gonna hear about Pixel Perfect till cows come home. The last point is this. This is the Caribbean. You know what our greatest is going to be? Psychological. We still have, pardon the reference, analog C-suite people who don't know what an algo is.
Amen. Why don't you just say it again, sister?
Oh, all right, you heard that one.
No, we have analog C-suite people.
Analog
So 4 years, 4 years ago, I used to work in as an adjudicator. I'm one of those people who used to approve your loans or don't approve them, God forbid. And we had a guy who had a farm. He had a working farm down in Weorton, and he has to do his farming early in the morning. So he does his loans at night. By the time we wake up to go to work, he has finished his work for the day. And he asked them, can I work from home because I have a farm running? And I said, no, we need to see you here, or we don't know that you're working, even though he has finished his work before we got to work. I said, the problem is not the guy, it's us. We're not giving him enough work. He had to get a farm.
So this is
but they could see through that.
Point. Analog C-suite. I think Arthur is going to respond to that one for sure. As
this is a hot discussion. This is a hot discussion.
We can say anything we want to say.
No, look, that's a killer point. And the truth at the end of the day is there are a couple of things I want to touch on.
Yes.
One of the I shepherd a number of startups. A bunch of them are in Jamaica, and I've led a number of some pretty large ones around the globe, from online gaming in China to a couple of brands you guys would probably have shopped at: Ann Taylor, Avon, 1-800-Flowers.com, and the list. And one of the things that we had to do for each of those is to avoid the jack of all trades and master of none syndrome.
Yes.
I've spoken to a number of kids coming out of startup Jamaica. And he said, tell me your story, Sean. And they all have wonderful ideas. Problem number one, technology looking for a problem to solve. It's not going to work. They are not connecting with a real lived experience issue that they can solve for real human beings. So that's one. Two, they are trying to do too many things all at the same time. You've got to specialize. You've got to decide what is it that's going to differentiate you from the other 35 startups, right? And so we all have to accept, also in the world we live in, somebody once said, fail fast, recover fast. It's the nature of the world we're in. So the definition of lasting in your bullet, Sean, is really the question. When we were kids, our parents would tell us, you graduate, you go to Ford, and you retire from Ford and you get a cool pension. That's lasting, right? That's 40 years of lasting, right? Today, lasting is in about 3 years, I'm gonna either merge extend or I'm going to get out.
Yeah.
So the definition of lasting and sustainability is a moving target.
Yes.
So the truth is that, again, to be successful, you have to have a thing that's going to meet a real need in the market. And you have to have those three personas that I believe it was Keith Joy who said, right? We don't need the drug dealers. We don't need the drug dealer money, but you know, we're hip to what you're saying. But at the end of the day, right, guys, you have to be willing to partner, as the brother said earlier, because if you take a look at what we all now call Amazon, y'all remember where they started, right? It was a bookstore, okay? If you take Avon, most of you probably don't know, 130 years ago, Avon was a book company.
Oh.
And what happened, and then I'll yield back to everyone, was he wanted to, it's a he, by the way, for the ladies, all right? He wanted to sell more books. And he had this bright idea that if he were to sell to women at a point in time when women were making noise and saying, hey, we can do what men can do, he said, no, let me go after that market. It's almost his version of this time, right? And so he went and got these perfume swatches and stuck them in the middle of the books, because in his mind, the woman will buy the books because they have the little swatch, and he thought that was a marketing gimmick, Kev. And guess what happened? He went by a dumpster, and Sean, he found all the books thrown out, and all the swatches were gone.
Of course, we used to use them.
Right, he realized, wait a minute, it's not my darn books. It's the perfume swatch that they want. And he switched. So again, was he sustainable? Was he lasting? No. He is sensitive to a real lived market need. And the last one I'll give to you is, you all know who Henry Ford was.
Yep.
You guys know the Ford Motor Company. And back then, someone said, why did you decide to build the Model T? And he said, if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse.
Yes. Agility. Yes. Some level of agility.
So it lasting is, for me, not material as much as it's your ability to identify the need, to be flexible, to be willing to partner, and to be willing to change yourself as the startup and stay focused.
I love this conversation. This is Caribbean Thought Leadership on a Sunday afternoon here from the University of Technology, Jamaica. Leave your comments below at the end of this podcast, which is actually streamed via YouTube as well. So this will be actually shared again later with the general public for even greater feedback. So I think, guys, we have had a killer conversation so far, to use Art's words, in the context of what we are saying here. Build a team that has the stack of the investor, the marketer, the researcher, etc., who can respond to Keisha Gay's needs in the modality she would like, based on her needs at the Racing Commission. That's the use case I'm actually building from. And Art tapped it off so far to suggest that, hey, listen, at the end of the day, last thing really means you know how to adapt. You are agile. So therefore, these are the characteristics that build suitable startup. Well, listen, you have more comments, leave them down below. Let me pass it around the table. I mean, other colleagues here, please weigh in. And I'm seeing even a student, Theodore, you can jump in as well. Prendergast, I know you're in one of my classes now, but feel free here to join in. And Dr. Forrester, you can also join in. I'm seeing you here as well on the call. So please, anybody else any more thoughts on this question? Because we'll be jumping to the next one, which is interestingly just as important. So if there are no more comments on that last question at the moment, I'm going to then ask us, well, considering where we are in a pandemic, and this may not necessarily have to apply in a pandemic either. It could be pre-COVID or COVID, but you know, would we recommend that companies become a novelty versus the, what you call the commodity type companies, and what should we be going in and say, listen, I have to go in with something completely brand new to have a skin in the game, as the Americans use the term, to have a skin in the game? Or should we be looking at, you know, traditional type of services and figuring out probably how we can digitize some of those services as a commodity type company? I want to get a feedback. So we already exhausted sustainability question and last thing, but this one, what is your views, if I may ask, and the floor is open. I didn't mean for any question to be too hard, because as you think about it, it arguably could mean that we need both. But for surety, let's be clear that about the context. Either way, what is your thoughts? What's your thoughts?
I can jump there, Sean, and then maybe
Thank
trigger
you.
other thoughts.
Thank you, Art. Yes.
I think that the cheap answer is it's both, right? Because, you know, if you look at well, because all right, so if you take the really cool things that Conrad and his guys have done, right? Depending on how you look at it, there's a point when it was novel, right? And then if you watch it over its maturity curve, it's now been extended, it's extensible. He said he had a pivot because he had a novel technology, but because of that real lived market need, he had to pivot it, right? And that's excellent. That's exactly the point. So I think that one of the things that the startup tech heads struggle with is they're sitting there trying to find that killer new idea. We've all heard it, right, guys? What's that killer app, when app was a thing? And as opposed to going, well, yeah, you may have this killer thing that no one's ever heard of, and that's beautiful and it's great. But there are many opportunities to help organizations drive efficiency through their value chain if you study where the breaks are, and then just simply come alongside and create a commodity, right? So I think that there are opportunities for our very bright people to bring these novel ideas, while at the same time, you know, developing a commodity that can extend and improve an already existing piece of technology or drive efficiency through the value chain. And the discussion around online loan originations, there's nothing novel about it. We're using the internet, we're putting some forms on a page, we're slapping an engine behind it based on a credit policy that already exists on a piece of paper. But yet still, to the customer, it's this really cool thing I can get approved in 5 minutes, right? So it really is wide open for those creative, right brain thinking people to kind of recognize that I don't have to kill myself trying to find a thing that no one's ever heard of. Yes. Because there are so many opportunities to add value, to improve humanity, to improve people's quality of life, to drive efficiency in operations and supply chain. And all you have to do is think about how you can solve a problem that even you yourself experience, right? The only one example I have of this is when I was in Beijing and we acquired a bunch of online gaming companies, everyone bought Lotto the same way. And we decided we were gonna allow you to use the remote control attached to your set-top box to play Lotto. That was novel. But at the same time, we also allowed you to use the website to pick your numbers. So again, you got to go after it both ways. Don't lock yourself into one.
Excellent point. Excellent point indeed. It's a good way to start off this question. And thank you, Art, for that very valuable contribution. This is Caribbean Thought Leadership on a Sunday afternoon, riveting conversations about tech startup and where we're heading. So the floor is open, and thank all for that point. I see here, Kathy, your hand is still up, or was it up from before? But the floor is
no, I have a point when you're done.
Go ahead. Okay. In that order, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. yes, the novelty issue. And I'm reminded of China. China always had this mantra. They're not going to invent, they're going to innovate.
Yes.
And for a long time, that is how they do it. There is not much, what should I say? There is not much patting on the back these days to invent anything. Truth be told, I think anything you can think of is already out there. So unless you get some epiphany, and that is gonna be quite out there, you must have something that no one else has, and there's a need and no one in the 7 billion of us never thought of. But for the rest of us, we're going to be innovating. And in the Caribbean especially, we see the North innovating. We see everybody else innovating except us, and we are waiting on the crumbs. And that's one of the thought processes behind my company, because ebooks are not new. We buy them all the time. Everybody has a Kindle, and if you don't have a Kindle, you have a free Kindle app.
Yes.
But if you search on there for your daughter's grade 3 integrated studies book, you will not find it. And you will end up going to Kingston Bookshop with your mask on to join the line to get this book. There's children now in her class that are not Jamaican because of what was going on in the North in the height of the pandemic. People enroll their children in schools in Jamaica because we were hip to it. Some of the prep schools pivoted quick, but they can't get the grade 3 books, so they send remittance to somebody to go to Kingston Bookshop to get the book FedEx back to them. What a travesty.
Interesting.
So there are children from Belize, there are children from Canada, because you know what is going on in those countries. There's still the thing about being a huge country, you can't get consensus. And this is one of the novel times when Jamaica is small and we can think on our feet and the playing field is level because everybody have internet. The only people who don't have it is those who don't want it. So the things that will attract businesses is the innovation.
Right.
And we should think along those lines.
An excellent point and an excellent use case you just shared with the books, because I didn't know all of that, and we are in academia. I didn't know all that was happening with the schools, the lower schools. Excellent. Excellent.
Primary schools.
Excellent point. So, Theodore, on the heels of what Chef George just shared, would you like to weigh in? I see your hand up. Go ahead, man.
Good evening, everyone. Theodore Pernigas here, fourth year student at University of Technology. I must say, I thank you so much for this, Mr. Thorpe, because the information presented here it's a lot, but trust me, it's resonating. I must say, as a student and also a person in the business field, family business field, I must say what you guys are saying is very true. I'm now stuck in a case or in a sense where I'm trying to evolve a business, but because of the traditional mindset associated with technology and how technology can be used for the bad things and so on, it's kind of hard trying to convert a person that has that mindset into a new and innovative mindset that will propel the business. So whilst I am just here, just listening and taking my notes, I must say I thank you guys for all this information.
Yes, you're welcome. What we'll be doing, this is Caribbean Thought Leadership, Technology Thought Leadership. So Theodore, as a student, what is going to happen is that this podcast is going to be available in the university, and students like yourselves who did not get a chance to come and listen to this will be able to hear and weigh in accordingly on the thoughts that were shared today. And possibly in the next one, they will be able to join more like yourself. So it will be available to them. Thank you for that very, very timely input, sir. Very good, very good. And as you guys get ready to leave university and finish the programs of study, these kind of concerns should also be, influencing you. Will you be doing your own startup? Will you be joining the traditional workforce? So it is timely that the conversation is being held. So I'm moving this along the floor. Is there any more thought on the issue of novelty versus commodity? Very important point. So you're saying they can be both. And Mrs. Watson just indicated, well, listen, the use case is there that in the space of innovation, you can also bring novelty, when knowingly or not, based on what is it you're doing. So after time, I do anticipate that just like when cloud computing was here in 08, 09 as a big space, as a novelty or so-called novelty then, in 2021, it's now a commodity. Just like some of the technologies. So the analogy is true for companies, and it's a very important point that we can be in both spaces. As a matter of fact, I would want to argue that if I'm running a startup, commodity probably pays the bills tomorrow in order to keep the lights on in the startup, virtual or otherwise. Novelty takes a little bit more time to be seasoned and mature to hit the market. So while that is happening in the back end, we can always look at the obvious things and learn how to monetize and to drive them. So I think these are some useful points. But any other point on this one before we move? Any other perspective that we didn't catch? Going once, going twice. Because I have another very salient question that comes behind that one that I'd like us to answer. Any other thought on the novelty versus commodity? If not, we'll move on. If any thoughts come later, I will welcome them. I see a hand up. Theodore, is a hand up from this session or what I just pointed out? You have the floor.
No, I'm sorry. I'll take it
it's
down.
from before. All right, thank you. All right. So against the background, I'll take it down. Against the background of that, the question then that we must now consider, and I'm sure this is sometimes the white elephant in many rooms, capitalizing your startup. It could be technology well, I would want to argue today that every startup is a digital startup and must be using technology. You know, I would be foolhardy to think otherwise. So capitalizing it, how do we go about it? If I go to the traditional bank, all right, or a building society, and Kate Joyce here, I mean, she knows the history of the banking, and so is Art and
Lord.
And you tell them you're going to do a technology startup and my intellectual property will be my capital. Won't the loans officer run us all from before them and ask you to go and find something tangible to bring to before them to engage?
That's why they have security guards at the gate.
And that's why they have security guards at the gate. So the fundamental point here, and anybody can weigh in, please. Capitalizing these technology startups. I don't know, to me it's a hard question, but let's open the floor to get more ideas, because probably there are more and less ideas that can help to contribute to the response. Here in the Caribbean in 2021, this is still a problem. This is still a problem. But let me hear the views on what you think is required to drive the capitalization of startups. Cavell Hilton, a pleasant good afternoon to you. So the hand being raised. Cavell, just say where you're from for me, please, and I'll give you the floor right away this time around to start if you want to jump in on that one.
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Cavell Hilton from STEM Builders Learning Hub. I'm the founder and CEO, and I'm an EdTech startup. So I think that in terms of capitalizing technology startups, I believe there are a lot of grants out there trying to help, especially now in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, to digitize a lot of companies. And a lot of millennials like myself may start companies that are tech oriented. And so a lot of grant funding and, you know, would be out there that they could utilize to actually start.
Okay, so your suggestion is, well, okay, the funding source
or angel investors.
Okay, I was about to ask you to qualify for me. Who are some of these funding agencies? So locally, in terms of a tech startup, what kind of money we're talking about generally to a tech startup that you can get funding for? Is it allowing you to fund all intentions of the business based on your 2-year or 5-year plan? you have put in place?
Well, there are some, or let me just add that there are some, for example, the DBJ that allows you to combine with a BSI to actually create your website.
That's the Development Bank of Jamaica.
Bank of Jamaica, right. So they offer actually $200,000.
That's US dollars or Jamaican dollars?
Jamaican dollars.
Well, you know,
the 200,000
somebody
Jamaican
might
dollars.
say, how far can 200,000 Jamaican dollars go?
Well, it can't, not very far, but
that
it's a start.
Like 2,000 US dollars. You know, not it's less than 2,000 US dollars. How practical is that as it relates to funding a startup where the cost elements could be way more than that? That feels like an insult to injury. I'm just playing devil's advocate on that point, but I take what you're saying. You can go DBJ, you can go BSI. Who's BSI? You said BSI.
Well, the BSI is basically business incubators. They're the ones that usually partner, like, for example, the Scientific Research Council and Sisters Inc. They would partner with the DBJ to sometimes offer these services. It's actually 70% of the fees of whatever service that you need that they will provide. So for example, at STEM Builders Learning Hub, when I was just starting out, I started using that grant to actually create my website. We offer tutoring services to students ages 5 to 18. And we also provide science or STEM activity kits. So when we starting our website, we got the grant from DBJ, but didn't stop there, entered several pitch competitions that would also offer some funding that you could start. And another thing, if you're a startup, well, a tech startup, you have the opportunity to keep your overhead costs low. So even though it's a drop in the bucket,
yes,
with some funding from family and friends and from savings, with this little help, you can actually get started. But it's up to you now to not just be a startup, but to pivot and to stay up.
Okay, so you just suggested personal funding, engage the private equity, look at grants, you know, as options. Okay, so I take that point and it's reasonable. But let me hear some others. I mean, these are just probably one set of tools in the stack, but it's probably based also on the size of your vision and what you want to be doing. But I take that point, reasonable. Is there any other views on this one? Capitalizing the tech startup. How should we be approaching that?
We shouldn't sneeze at 250,000.
No, I was Jamaican, but yes, devil's advocate. I was playing devil.
I understand it's Jamaican. I actually know a company that's 5,000 US dollars away from having their platform ready.
Excellent,
So
excellent.
there's half of it gone right there, right? So really, the idea is it's everything that I believe it's Cavell says. Because I'm shepherding these startups, and like I said, having done them, you know, you have to look at every option that's out there, right?
That's
so
correct.
From the pennies you might have,
yes,
to family members, to close friends, to mentors, and then the angel investors, who as the term angel would imply, to those who want an equity position, to loans, to government agencies that offer these grants, to the incubator services. And the incubators don't have to be in Jamaica, because Sean, as you know, I'm one of the owners of Calibra Solutions Limited.
Yes.
In Trinidad, and we put our environment in an incubator program in
Trinidad.
Right? And then eventually came out of it, to Cavell's point, we needed to keep the overhead low, and well, 6 years ago, and the thing is doing well. So, you know, and then you go for the big equity investors. So it's really that spectrum that's there, and you have to be willing to give up some of your company in order to get to where you want to go. And so again, it's the entire capital markets, which, by the way, includes your own pennies that you have.
That's right.
You need to look at all of them And it's a mixture that you're going to go out with. I'm sure Conrad can speak to his own experience when he was getting stuff.
I'd love for him actually to share with us. I'd love for it, yes.
Right. So it's all those things that are available, and you just have to want to spend the time to do the research, as Cavell would have alluded to, and to really do the paperwork. Many of these things these grants require that you fill out lots of documents.
That's
and
correct.
But if you really, really want it, and if you're really motivated, guess what? You're going to do it because you understand this is what it takes minimally to get funded.
Indeed. So it's all valuable points. It is by no means or stretch of the imagination that small funding is not as important as big funding. Never to take away that fact or reality. So I do in fact welcome this very, very valuable point. So I heard from Cavell, I heard from Art. I mean, is there any other view on the capitalization of a technology startup? One thought that is hitting me at this point, based on what Art said. You know, you're in Trinidad running, you know, these incubator services. You know, we probably will need a dashboard or a technology startup capital bank, for want of a better word, of the type of companies across the region that are willing to invest in, you know, novel or commodity type startups. And, you know, both students in the university or young practicing professionals who would like to have this option be able to know where to go. I think probably that's a useful action point for me coming out of this forum today at this point, because there are quite a few of you who are probably under the radar, but just doing some fantastic work to help those who need this type of capital. So the floor is still open, and I'm throwing it around to other members on this call to just weigh in if they have any additional perspectives on how we should be treating with this matter of capitalizing technology startup. Should government be telling the banks to give you money based on your IP? You have a brilliant piece of IP. I heard one government minister saying that before, you know, some years ago. I think it was on the show. They were thinking about it, but I didn't see it materialize. I did not see it materialize. But what's the thoughts? Mrs. Watson, the floor is yours again.
Yes, sir. I put on an old hat now. When I was in banking, this is the truth about it is, if you're going to approach any established financial institution in Jamaica, be prepared for some adversity, because you are far ahead of where they need to be. So it might be, if you have assets like real estate, that is how. Don't tell them you're trying to get money for a tech startup. Don't lead with that argument. Tell them you want an equity loan, because you can get an equity loan without telling them the reason for the loan. And then you go about and do your business. If you try to go the route of telling them, you say how Cavell was just throwing out abbreviations a while ago, BSI and this and that.
Yes.
That's why they have security guards. Don't do that, because you're speaking over them. And the best thing for them to do when that happens is tell you, sorry, we can't help you. They're not where you are in tech world. So you telling them about your IP is like telling them something in Russian.
Well, you know, I'm finding it so hard to believe, you know, Mrs. Watson, with the banks.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Because guess what? You see the financial sector in the Jamaican landscape here now, that's the last plantation. So those are the types of personalities you would deal with and the psychology behind that. Not too long ago, we had a guy who was trying to get property. He lives overseas. No, sorry, he lives here, but he works overseas. He runs the website for a gardening company in the US. And they tried not to give him the loan because they could not make the leap that he worked from home running a company's website, a gardening company of all things, overseas, even though they could see it was a legitimate company. They couldn't make the leap. And that kind of persona persists within the financial sector. If you must approach one of these financiers, go with the one that is tech savvy, and they will show you who they are by their works.
Yes.
Don't trouble the other ones. Don't trouble the other ones. They're still trying to figure out the abbreviations.
Okay, so do we have any in the Caribbean landscape that is doing this kind of thing? I just wonder. Probably
NCB, Sagicor,
and Sagicor.
And Sagicor. Yeah. JMMB.
I'd like to respond to Joy regarding good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'd just like to respond to the question of the IT or tech savvy individual and being able to communicate with the traditional CFOs, being trained as a business leader to believe that IT is a support service. So therefore, when you come to them, you can never speak the business term. Do you think that there needs to be a recognition that IT is now at the table of the C-level, and therefore IT itself, in terms of its leaders, in terms of tech leaders, need to speak the language of the CEOs, the financiers, etc. I know you mentioned that we need these three distinct individuals to make the startup sustainable. But I do believe that with the disruptions that are taking place, that IT is being looked upon to respond to a lot of the challenges that that we see. IT don't even know what the outcome is going to be because we are just merely experimenting, exploring, building components. We have not yet even mapped out a technology roadmap to see how data, digitalization, and cloud strategies are going to merge to create all kinds of possible solutions in the future. So I'm saying, my thesis is that the IT professional will have to speak the language of the traditional business people and be able to do that and more, because we look to the future organization to be someone who can speak those language as well as being tech savvy.
I want to put a plug before you give a response to Dr. Campbell just now. You know, at the School of Computing and Information Technology, we have had to introduce within the curriculum a specialization track for the information system students that does exactly what he just said. A technology entrepreneurship track just to be able to speak that language. But listen, let me step back and listen to the panel of persons here on their views and all this. Are you going to respond to Dr. Campbell, and then I observe Cavell's hand up, yes, in that order?
Yes. Hello, Dr. Campbell. Nice to meet you via Zoom. This is the thing, and I'm going to give you some secondary data now, not primary data from myself as a financier for how much are the years, but I happen to be married to somebody who is in charge of computer security, and he laments IT persons. They have the knowledge, but they don't get a seat at the table unless something is broken. Yes?
Yep.
And that's when they get the call, and you will hear, Mr. So-and-so, we need, this thing is broken. The people are asking for online forms. Can you do it? And he will say to Mr. C-Suite, sir, I did it a year ago in my proposal, but it wasn't funded. Yes? So the IT persons that UTech and the other colleges turn out, they have the knowledge and they're in the spaces, but they don't get a seat at the table until it's a reactionary thing to what customer demands. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are the things that happen. We need more IT people at the C-suite who speak the language, who can explain to your CEO and your CFO, the ideas guy and the money guy, why he needs a bigger budget for his department, because this is the way the river is flowing now.
I'll leave Art to make that link in a moment. I'll leave Art to make that connection that will allow both Dr. Campbell and Mrs. Watson to be able to synergize on that point. That's a very valid point that both of you have raised in the context of this conversation of even capitalizing the technology startup, because the ability to speak the right language, you're correct. Communicating properly is important here. So I take that wholeheartedly, colleagues, and I love how this conversation is quite riveted and spirited so far. Cavell, in that order, then followed by Art. Cavell, you're going to weigh in on a comment?
Yes, I wanted to make a comment regarding what Mrs. Watson was saying. I do take her point, and I agree regarding not going to them talking about a tech startup, because to them that is quite novel and it's risky. So they may not want to take the chance to actually lend you any money as it relates to that. But my question is, do you find that this is changing with companies in Jamaica? You know, a lot of edtech companies starting now in Jamaica with YPay, with ENDS being implemented. Do you find that this is something that is changing, or you foresee that this is something that will change? That is my question to Ms. Watson, Mrs. Watson.
Those are your forerunners, YPay and ENDS. I remember when Quisk came out, I couldn't even say the word, and I was like, they won't kill this company with the word alone. But look at it now. You see taxes passing and you say, pay me with Quisk. These are your forerunners, and Quisk is an NCB run business. I hate this term that, and they coined it too, you know, maybe 2015, agile business. Anybody remember that? When NCB came out with their agile incubator, and everybody take it on. Every document in corporate Jamaica had agile. Some of them not even spell it right, but only they alone were doing it.
Right, that's
and
true.
So I say that is a pandemic ready company, because now the pandemic hit and no one is at work. Everybody is at home, and NCB still making super profits.
Yes, that is so true.
But as I said, Cavell, as I said, you're right. When you get into a place, in a space like that, lead with this. I need an equity loan, because this is in a time like this. You know what financial institutions are doing? They're lending money. They're creating a large debt trap. So this is the time when they're vulnerable for you to get in there and say, I need $500,000. And they're more than happy to say, sure. What collateral do you have? Maybe you have a, what you call it? An X-Trail or a Nissan something. Give them that. Give them that as your equity. Leave your car title, leave your house title, and be on your way with your $500,000 to do your tech startup. Do never lead with, oh, I have intellectual property. My company has 500 customers. I do. All of that is true, but it doesn't translate. So take an opportunity now. Everybody is giving a loan. Don't you get the text? Don't you see the filters on the side of your Gleaner web page? Click on this. In 3 steps, you will get a loan. Click, click, click.
Yes, the pandemic, yes.
Yeah.
You have to know to navigate that in order to
navigate the space.
Yes.
They're willing to give you the money because they need to create more money at this time.
That's right. That's right. It's a valid point she has raised, and I take it as a clarification of where capital funds can also be acquired at this time. Art, and then Arnett, I see your mic open, but I'll defer to Art, because Art was going to connect something you said, Dr. Campbell, I'm sure.
Yes, I just, after Art has spoken, I will just, yeah.
I can, you know, my favorite term, lived experience. I've been a chief information officer or a CTO of a number of companies globally, and I get paid to transform organizations from a technology-driven perspective. And so Dr. Campbell, I totally support what you're saying there. And I want to touch that. Then I'm also going to go over to Kev Joy's point because it's relevant. I'm also an academic. And one of the things that I've had to do in working with Sean and in my other life at the University of the West Indies, Mona School of Business, is we're redefining the pedagogy so that our MBAs, even MBAs in HR, are going to graduate knowing how to implement in the 12 weeks of the semester a fully integrated human resource information system, because it's about transformational HR, just as an example. Same thing with the School of Computing, the master's degree in information systems management. But one key ingredient is teaching the tech people how to write a business case. I have had students come to the MBA programs from all across Jamaica and the Caribbean, and they have no idea what is a business case, Dr. Campbell. They've never seen one, and they're in their third year. So I'll stop there because I think the message is clear on what needs to be done. I think Kev Joy's point is so powerful. There is a huge gap between what the current C-suite holds as their definition of the role of the lead IT person. They view IT, or the lead IT person, as leading a group that's keeping the lights on, status quo, right? And my own personal example of this right there in Jamaica, Kev Joy and team, is an extremely large company in Jamaica was about to finalize the interview process with me. And it got to that last discussion where I was told that if I got paid what I am supposed to be paid, I would make more than the chief financial officer. So that tells you already, the CIO can't make more than the CFO, and that means they don't get where innovation's coming from. So the disconnect is real. And that's why it's even more important than Kev Joy, that the person running IT, there's a difference between an IT manager, guys, and a chief information officer who is an entrepreneur, whose next role is chief executive. Therefore, anyone wanting to lead IT must understand how to speak that language, must understand how to make the case, do the cost benefit analysis, do the return on investment analysis, and must be comfortable speaking about marketing and communications and operation. They need to see holistically that they're actually running a practice within the organization, and we're not teaching them to do that. And when they go out there, there's no one to mentor them. So I think the 2 points, this is the bridge. And so there is a cause and effect. And I'll leave it there so others can jump in on it.
This is a powerful Caribbean thought leadership, technology thought leadership forum this afternoon. It's so good, I feel like we could have a part 2. And it's a very useful set of points here that, you know, and I hear Kev Joy indicating that we might have to decimate the corporate status quo in order to achieve these things. Culture has strategy for breakfast.
It's required. It's required.
Yes,
yeah.
It's required.
I always tell him, you know, culture eats strategy for dinner.
Yes, all right.
Yes.
So, Dr. Campbell, the floor is
Yes.
yours again.
Yes. So, Art, you said it. You said it exactly how I anticipated. I anticipated in that way that we have to manage IT as a business, and we have to speak the language. We have to learn all the skills, because we are no longer the support. We are going to be looked at, and we are being looked at as competitors, or as candidates to be the next CEO of the organization. So therefore, we're going to have to know how to negotiate the choppy waters, because the chief person that is going to try to hit at us and try to show that we are incompetent is going to be the CFO. And we're going to have to shine against the CFO, because in this age when they don't know, because so many disruptions are happening in the enterprise, and they don't know how to respond to it, because everything they put their hands on. It is failing. They are turning to us and they are saying to you, it is being disrupted by technology. So we want you to give us the case. We want you to give us the solution. So we must it's a golden opportunity for the IT professional to seize on the moment and take their rightful position in the C-level.
True. True.
Okay, so this is good. This is really good conversation, and I can tell you what it is suggesting to me. We will need to look at that alignment discussion a little bit further, because it's not an easy thing to resolve, but this pandemic is showing it up clearly, and the pandemic really provides its own opportunity to help tech to come front and center so that it can be recognized in terms of its contributions. So I from what I've learned from you all so far, capitalization of the technology startups have options. They do. From looking at your own equity funding to research grants to third stream grants from government agencies like the Development Bank of Jamaica. And there are other entities, I'm sure, across the region as well for other Caribbean stakeholders on this call.
And finally, Professor Thorpe,
yes.
I just want to say thanks to Joy for validating my dissertation, because exactly what it showed.
Yeah.
Exactly what it showed. And you see the enterprise that is shining.
I take something from Arthur's. I have a lived experience to share.
Okay. So in the context of this conversation, then capitalization has a lot of room for growth. There are some options available, from grants to equity in the banking system, given the panacea that banks are going through right now, that we can all be looking to leverage. Very useful, very constructive points indeed. So if in the context of that conversation, and persons can continue to weigh in, is it reasonable then to think that, you know, with artificial intelligence, data clouds, data fog, we don't want to take them literally things, the clouds in the sky and the fog in the sky. You have data clouds, the fog, you have privacy, data privacy. All of these are somewhat elements of, well, it could be seen as deterrents or disruptors in how the new digital business should be functioning. So when you think about it, are these things really going to allow us to really have the enablement, or probably want to have a better word, it might disable for those who would want to get in, but will this really allow companies locally and in the region to jump in and be able to take advantage? Because AI and cloud and fog and privacy, all of these are new issues for the digital businesses. I could argue that there are barriers, but how do you see them all functioning in this new wave of technology startup and business enterprise? Are there things we have to embrace? Is it that we select out of the stack, or we have alternatives? Or is it an obvious question with an obvious answer? But it's food for thought, just anyway, to hear. How do you view this one? The AI and the cloud and the data privacy issues. The privacy issues with data is telling you that if you start a new digital business, you know, even if you capitalize it, you can't be too careful, because what obtains is if you do the wrong thing with the data and you harvest the data like a bank, or you actually don't disclose that you have been compromised, you could run a 4% risk of jeopardizing the transactional returns on your business for every breach that occurs, for example, with the business. So, you know, one argument could be that, listen, if you're a digital business, you need to pay attention to those issues. So, Joe, you're doing a e-business. There are data privacy concerns. You know, you might be dealing with customers from Jamaica, the Caribbean, the EU. you know, if it's not done properly as a part of your terms of agreements and contracts, you know, you run the risk of the business that you're trying to put out there in the first place could be wiped out. So I'm using that example as a clarification to the point then that, listen, the AI, the cloud, the fog, privacy of data, are these deterrents? And that is what how we should function.
Yes, Sean.
Yes, go ahead.
And this is the thing. My business partner is my chief IT risk officer, who I coincidentally am married to. So I get this lecture every day about data privacy. I know more about GDPR than I should know.
Oh boy.
Yes. And in my previous life, not too long ago, in banking, decisions were being made that maybe all those Jamaicans in the diaspora, in the EU, we should not really entertain them because of the hassle in doing business, because GDPR is leaps and bounds ahead on that side of the world than here. See what happened to Apple, see what happened to Facebook. So our corporate world, Caribbean corporate world, are really mulling over whether they should even entertain bank accounts from persons living in the EU.
Well, we don't have a choice. We are part of the CARIFORUM agreement. We don't have a choice since 2000.
Yes, but you see, theory and praxis. Okay. They might just create barriers for you to actually do business with them. It's similar to what some of these banks do when you're going to the banking line and it's so slow and you're complaining because I don't want you there. They're not going any faster until you eventually stop. So that is what they do. But for me running an ebook publishing business, I have so many concerns. If I publish something that is not politically correct, I could get sanctioned. If I publish something online that is offensive to one whole culture, I could get sanctioned. I might go the way of the satanic verses. I run such a high risk. But does that prevent me from running my business? I think not. I think I'm going to have to do what Arthur says. I'm going to have to fail fast and recover fast. Yeah. Because this kind of business is almost like you're walking and you don't know where the quicksand is, especially with AI and cloud and data privacy.
Like how you put it, the quicksand it is. Quicksand it is. So Art is waiting to jump in at this point, and I'll give him the floor if you're finished with that point, Joy, because it's really a very quicksand situation indeed. Art, what is your view on this? As I see your hand.
Yeah, I agree again with the points just raised. Again, nothing we're discussing is really absolute, right, guys? There is no silver bullet. And for the same reason that you have effective risk management in a pre-digital world, there were always risk management departments, right? The fact that we're digital now isn't introducing anything new. It just means that we need to become more aware and more educated on what is required to be compliant. So the reason one might see somewhat of a deterrent with some of these things, especially privacy, is basically ignorance, a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding. There's a friend of mine who's actually tuned in right now, who spent his life on all things risk, and has always said that you must understand risk management before you make the investment. So I think it's not a real deterrent. I think it's just people are not aware enough, they don't understand enough, they don't read enough. And I think we need to get everyone educated on this new world, especially if you're gonna go online, and all the rules, because you're talking about GDPR, and I'm trying to sell diamonds globally in my company. And so it's not just GDPR. I've got the California Consumer Protection Act to worry about. I've got SOC to worry about. There's a plethora of these things that I've got to worry about. But that's not stopping us, right?
Yes.
I think that AI, artificial intelligence, I think Conrad talked about augmented reality, and we can go down the list. These are all enablers for disruption, and they need to be welcomed. Because if you think about it, right, in cybersecurity, much of what's protecting us is the fact that we have AI algorithms and engines doing what 5,000 humans would be doing.
True.
And you can't hire that many people to manage phishing attacks, okay? So these are unavoidable. You find the total cost of starting up today a company is much lower than 10 years ago because I can just have thing as a service in the cloud. In fact, you and I could get together now and compete with Septimus and his bank. Next week, we could start our equivalent of NCB in a month by simply taking banking as a service, subscribe to a core banking platform in the cloud, subscribe to an online origination platform, and we're ready. You got a bank, okay? So it is not a barrier, and it's not a deterrent. I just believe it's ignorance and not being aware that it might appear to be a deterrent, but it really isn't.
It's an excellent point, and the question is crafted to just stir the mind, because you're in fact all right. I think it's not. You have to weigh the risk with the reward, and the reward really outweighs the risk, as you're suggesting, to fail fast. So it's an excellent segue into a conversation really that the technology is providing not only enablement but leverage. Clear leverage in order to run these startup initiatives. So this is really a learning evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful learning evening on a Sunday. And for those of you who are students, staff, and otherwise looking to engage your own startup, the context of the conversation here should sort of provide some clarity to the things that you should be thinking about, and some of the options that you may have available to how you go about this exercise. Lloyd, my good friend, please, I see your hand up. You can weigh in at this point in time.
Well, I didn't want to disappoint my friend Art, because I know that him throw that one out there for me.
I was throwing it out there for you to pick it up, brother.
Yeah. So hello everyone, I'm Lloyd Campbell. I don't know if I'm related to the doctor, but it's possible.
Small world. Well, I know. Well, I can say the data analytics is that you were a part of the JCS.
Well, I was going to ask you if you are my elder brother, because the first child of my parents is Lloyd.
Boy, this will be a strange reunion indeed, but it'll be good. Yes.
I don't think so. I'm the youngest from my father that I know. All right. So.
That solves that problem. All right, gentlemen. That solves that problem. Yes.
Yeah. But Art, it's interesting because of course, the questions that I have posted to you and why I felt that, the idea of providing a risk management service, to companies in Jamaica, is needed. And when I hear that, the CIO don't even have a seat at the table, to have these discussions, and it's only when there's a break fix that they're bringing in people, then that's my answer right there. Because, they're obviously not looking into compliance, right, the way they should, right? They're not trying to get ahead of the curve. They're only being reactive. And, when you guys talked about what kind of, company or model would be successful, it has to be service, because a service organization is the one that is nimble to meet the needs of the organization at hand, which is always changing. So that is how you maintain sustainability. So it's interesting. I don't remember the lady who was speaking who said she married to a security.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So I think maybe I should meet your husband and we should have additional conversations, because,
It would help me out greatly. So you could stop having them with me.
Yeah, because, like I said, I've been working in the States here all my life, and, in technology for many, many, many years. And I see that they're not doing it right here. And if they're not doing it right here, the chances of them not doing it right in Jamaica is 100%. So, you know,
so it's important that you
and
raise
Sean,
that
you and I had
point.
the same conversation.
Lloyd, don't leave that point yet, man. So the fact that they're not doing it right in the US, you bring a very important spin to the conversation. What is the problem there? Is it the same type of problems we are having here? Culture having strategy for breakfast?
No, not so much, because you know, technology certainly has a seat at the table now. Okay, the risk management, the CRO, is definitely one of the key people, even more so than the CFO these days. Okay, the risk officer, he has his hands in everything because of compliance, right? Strictly because of compliance. And why? Because he'll get fined, right? And the big banks will not be able to do acquisitions if they get bad marks from regulators. That is why they have to do it. And my question is, who's doing the regulations in Jamaica? Because that's the only way that the companies are going to be forced to do things properly through regulatory bodies, just like up here. Just like up here.
Well, the regulations are slow but surely coming. Several of them are being tabled and being engaged, but excellent set of points. So the legislation need to play catch up. We agree, as Art said earlier, that the disruption is very welcoming to provide the enablement and allows new technology startups to really have a skin in the game to be able to start competing even with the larger entities. So we really love this conversation and where it is going.
And someone just posted, grudgingly, they're going to be given a seat at the table. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter if it's grudgingly or not, because the only reason why the CRO is have such the
as a chief risk officer,
Yeah, the only reason he's at the table right now, again, is because of regulations, that they have to have somebody responsible for making sure that when the regulatory bodies come to them, they have somebody who can answer them and somebody who can make sure that they're doing the right things within the company, so that when they come and get an exam, right, by the regulators, they're doing everything right. Because I work for a bank right now, and believe me, when I tell you, so the regulators are on our tail, right? On our tail, they come in and they want to make sure that things are being done properly. And that's the only reason why we're doing these things now, unfortunately. And imagine, and this is the States.
The States. So there's a lot of catching up to be done here. More food for thought on Caribbean thought leadership, Caribbean technology thought leadership on a Sunday afternoon. Thanks for that input, Lloyd. It's definitely something to pay attention to. But in the context of this, then we're sort of moving on with a question that, in that, if we establish the startup and have to deal with all these concerns, from capitalization of the startup as a business to looking at what enablement through technologies that we could be putting in place and how we deal with that both legislatively and operationally. One of the questions that is always dogging many, and sometimes including myself, you know, set up the startup. And I don't know if Connor is still on the call here, because probably I would give him a chance to weigh in on this one as a starter on it. But how are you going to decide who runs the startup? Is it that you're going to have two persons, like a CEO and a COO, which I see some companies adopt, where, you know, you have persons with a skill set that, well, okay, I have this founder mentality, so it's a founder-driven leadership. I think somebody mentioned it earlier about ideas. You know, you have all these ideas, but isn't it there a need to have somebody who have the skills with, you know, that person, even though it's a startup, to scale the leadership, to be agile and drive the company in the direction where it should be going? Shouldn't that person really have a certain amount of vision, leadership vision, to really push the organization into its best choices? Or do we need both type of leaders? It might not be in one person. It could be in one person, I'm not saying, but probably should be two different roles. You know, so you have a CEO and a COO. I'm not sure. I want to hear how this should be interpreted. And the floor is open to the wow, I see a lot of hands here going. I see a lot of hands here going. This is what I am talking about on a Sunday afternoon. I am at pains and to figure out how I'm going to choose first. I could say, let me start with the ladies first, gentlemen. It makes my life easier. Cavell, you can start with that one. You seeing that you have an education startup that you in fact running right now. Please weigh in on this one.
Okay, so thank you. So the reality is, while having those three persons may be ideal, the reality is, as a startup, that may not be the case for you. You may not have those persons on hand as founders or persons that you can, sell some equity to actually assist you. So the reality is, as a startup or as a one founder, you have to wear all the hats.
Yes.
But I do believe, though, that if you want to scale, that you have to find a way to get these people on board. For me personally, I created a board of advisors with a mixture of these skills. And so that assisted, and those board of advisors, it pretty much voluntary, and mentors, of course, you can also utilize. So you may not be able to pay these different skill sets or the market or so as the founder or the CEO, you have to wear all the hats. You have to be doing the marketing, you have to have the ideas, you have to figure out how you're going to get the money. So you have to wear all the hats. But I do believe that if you want to really scale the business and pivot, then you have to figure out a way how to get these persons to assist, because you can't do everything. And that is the reality.
That's right. And Kevin, are you doing this as a full-time job? Or do you think that to do this, it has to be done full-time, can't be part-time?
Well, I have a 9 to 5.
Okay, so you're doing a brilliant job doing this thing, yes?
So it is my 5 to 10.
You're 5 to 10, so you manage the time. Excellent. That's an excellent point there and observation of how you make this work both ways. All right, excellent. So Lloyd and Art in that order. What's your view on this one? And I love what Cavell just indicated. You probably have chance to work as both in her organization. She have a lot of choices, and she put an advisory board in place. Seems like a reasonable place to start, to me. But let me hear yours. And Art, Lloyd, probably, is there a risk here? Is there a risk in this?
I think you're muted, Lloyd.
Maybe muted.
Yes, man, I'm here. So I'm sorry, the question again, Don, was?
No, I saw the hand up, so I thought it was responding.
Oh no, it's from before, no. It's from before. I never take it down. Yeah.
Okay. So Art, I defer to you then.
No, I think
this was from before too.
No. The startup is a spectrum of just different structures, right? One of the things we teach in information systems management is, as your organization grows on that continuum, so will the org structure evolve, Cavell. So you are where you are on the continuum, and you're essentially you're the marketer, the money person, the planner, the operations project manager, the tech, the CEO. You're doing everything because that's how you got started. And as your business continues to evolve and grow, you're going to find that you're going to start looking at your organization, and these functions are going to get created. Chief operating officer, right? You're going to need someone to cover legal and risk. So that's sort of organically going to happen. The point I wanted to make about this particular bullet is, it's not so much that should you have a CEO and a COO and all that beautiful C-suite, as much as I think in today's world, it's looking at the attributes of the people who are going to sit in these boxes, right? There was a research done by Forrester when this whole fintech thing started up, and as banks started to spin off digital banks, the question was, well, who are you going to put to run it? And most of them decided to have the CIO run the digital bank. Go figure. So to Dr. Campbell's point, right? The new CIO, and Sean, maybe that's the next book we ought to work on, right? The new CIO is going to run these companies just because of the digital era that we're living in. So I think that it is critical that you evolve your structure, But at each of these leadership roles, they have to be much more technically adept than what obtains today and previously. It's unavoidable. You can't get away from it because everything you do, every ounce of your operations, whether you're a consumer products company, whether you're selling jewelry in a store and online like I do, and doing diamonds, or your NCB with banking, or your hardware and lumber with commodities, the channels through which you're selling and the expectations of your customers because of things like Uber Eats and Amazon are going to force you to have a more technically adept leadership team. Whether it's one person or 5 persons, it really won't make a difference. The important thing is how technically adept are these folks, regardless of the bucket that you put them in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is an
They have to
excellent
be.
point. Yes,
They have to be technology business people.
Absolutely, biz techs.
Definitely, man. Definitely. So this is definitely an interesting conversation indeed, and this particular concern, as you well, I'll take the offer. We could definitely look at the book called the new CIO. Is it really the new CIO or the new CEO? Shouldn't the CEO of an organization have an integration of tech skills to drive his or her role in those remits? That's something I've always said, even as JCS president, to the teams in the Jamaica Computer Society. You know, they really should be spending time. Is it the new CIO or should it be the new CEO? Or the new CIO is the new CEO?
I think maybe it's going to be 2 books then, but
oh, I love it. I love it. I love it already. Yes.
There's a point to be made about what Dr. Campbell was saying, and certainly what Kev Joy was saying, that you know, go around and survey all of us here today. If you can, be so bold, ask your director of HR to tell you the difference between an IT manager and a chief information officer. That's that. So there's a book. But yes, definitely the new leader, the new CEO is the one that's most appropriate for the conversation we're having, Sean. Yeah, absolutely.
CEO, excellent point. So I will take you up on that book offer. I'll just get myself steady into the thinking. And these notes from the Caribbean Thought Leadership, Technology Thought Leadership will be useful notes as reference points for seeing. So this is an extremely wonderful conversation. Welcome, colleagues, to Caribbean Thought Leadership, Technology Thought Leadership. You know, I see Mr. Trevor Forrest joining us. Glad that you could join, but I'm going to defer back to Keith Joy Watson, who wanted to make a further comment on this point.
Yes, you know, I had my hand up for the next question coming in because I said I'm not.
Next question. Well, all right, you're early then.
But I say, you know, I'm gonna put my hand up already for the next question. So let me put it back down and wait until.
Oh, that was the reason. I love this enthusiasm. This lady is very enthusiastic, you know, colleagues. I must tell you, very enthusiastic. I've known her for a while indeed. Okay, so the type of leadership and how we mobilize the startup companies may rest in one or more person, fine, and I think Cavell caught that point well. You know, as a summary of what we've been discussing since evening, you know, why do we need to be running new startups in the pandemic? Everybody's saying so far, listen, the chaos brings order. It is time to look at the new spaces and opportunities. You have complete decimation of the traditional old thinking of companies that now need to be replaced with new ones. You know, sustainability is driven by a stack of research and quality teams through cross-fertilization of teams. This is what the discussions this evening are unearthing as a part of the whole idea of lasting. And of course, on that very point, agility must be a part of your sustainability strategy to outlast the role of startups, or to at least be in that 10% that are successful. novelty versus commodity companies, you need both, but both have a place in the whole space. I think commodity really pays the bills. Novelty basically gives you the true earnings over time. We have been saying as a part of this, well, listen, we need to capitalize the startup companies. Traditional banks are not doing it. So look at your alternative through research grants, private equity, and also just traditional equity from your traditional lending institutions, but use it to what you want it to do. That's what I got from that. And the technologies are all enablers. The AI, the cloud, the fog, the data privacy. We measure the risk, but we agree that the rewards outweigh the risk. And the type of leadership, Dr. Campbell just said in the chat, you know, it could be an infusion of the two at some point. It will need to work out itself. We will agree with that. I think this has been a very good conversation so far, but now we're moving on to ask the question.
Hey,
If
Sean,
you have, yes.
I have to apologize, but
You have to jump. Yeah, I understand. I understand. I thank you so much for coming. I thank you so much.
My brothers and sisters, it was a pleasure. I really appreciate this. I look forward to meeting you guys again virtually, and maybe one day in a post-COVID world personally. So take care, stay well, stay safe.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, right? Stay safe in where you are there. Art, thank you so much. Thank you. And Joy, thank you as well. Thank you. Yes. So Ket Joy, you wanted to go first on this one. Yes. You wanted to go first on this one. Investing in small teams versus big teams as a part of this as a tech startup. What's the thought there? What's the vision you have there?
For a vision, I mean, realistically speaking, very few of us have the money to go big anyway. So by default, we will all start small. And if you're going to have a small team in your startup, these traditional terms of who is a CIO versus who is a CFO and the other thing, you might find that it's a conflation of roles. So no, you can't have one guy who can just do one thing.
Yes.
So as you said, Dr. Campbell saying that, oh, IT people must have a seat at the board. IT people must now graduate to being the CEO instead of just the CIO. You will have to be both things. And small, lean teams is the way to go. I remember when was it, 2004 or 2002, they had a little video of Steve Jobs and how he operates Apple in these little pods, these little teams. And he flips around from team to team to team, because this little team over here is probably doing the iPhone 6 at the time. That one over there is trying to find the proper algorithm to make you scroll more, that sort of a thing. And then who says the teams can't look like a Venn diagram? Why can't the CIO be on the marketing team? Because he has some marketing acumen.
Yes, but the question though is, I guess, the issue of the...
How do we go about it?
Yeah, there's the issue of the size.
It's gonna be organic.
It's going to be organic, but so the size...
It's gonna be organic.
But the size
of...
Yes.
As we go ahead now, people who are starting these startups like Cavell, she has a 9 to 5 and she has a 5 to 10. For all we know, Cavell is a doctor.
Yes.
But she is doing STEM because she's not a one-trick pony.
Cavell, are you a doctor? That's a good point.
I stop now.
Well, I'm an educator. I'm the coordinator for science technology education at the Scientific Research Council. So it's right up my alley in terms of what it is that I do, or what I've always been doing for over a decade: science education, STEM.
All right, so just as involved, highly involved. So I was making the point that the team size, couldn't it be a function of the operation itself? Because what could be seen as a small tech startup, or it could be a medium-sized tech startup, we did not define a size, but the number of persons that organically would be placed on a team wouldn't that also be a function of your funding and any other
I have a
factors?
point though.
Yes, well, you have a point. Yes, I'm going
Yes,
to
I
allow
have
you.
a point as it relates to that. Definitely, I believe the team should be small. How do you go about it? I think now a lot of startups like myself, we are looking at not necessarily hiring persons full time, but
Okay.
on a part-time or contract basis, and
Yes.
using other tech organizations like Fiverr to provide certain services.
Right.
So, and it is usually cheaper as well. So if you want to get a business plan done, there are software out there that can get that done. If you want to get a graphic designer or pretty much almost any service, you can find that on Fiverr. So that is the way to go, I believe, is to keep the team small and to outsource as much as possible.
So
And
who is a must-have? So
use
who is a
contract.
must-have for the team? Who is the must-have you must have for the small team? What is a must-have?
Marketing and promotion,
And
sales.
promotion.
Yes.
Yes, that's one person. Okay, that's one person. So marketing, promotion, and sales. Those are three people for your company. That's three separate people. Okay.
Well, the marketing and promotion you can put together, and sales
Yes.
I would put separate, because now you have digital marketers and
Yes.
persons who are providing content on a regular basis. You tend to want them to focus on that and have someone who is now going to call up people and make sure to get the word out, to get the sales going, because that's how you're going to grow, if you can make more money.
Yes, indeed. Excellent points indeed. And then based on how the money is turning over, you would have a capacity plan for how you may then develop bigger teams as the size of the company or organization grows. Okay, so all right, so that's your formula for how you choose a team. So marketing and sales very big on your agenda. But will this not vary from team to team? This issue of the small versus size, is it not reasonable to say that other colleagues on the call? Is this issue of size the same viewpoint you have as Kesjoy and Cavell? Is it not subject to other pointers relating to what needs to be done? And of course, probably the amount of startup cash you also have. I would love to hear some other points on this. Dr. Campbell, Carmina.
Yeah, I would say that the size is dependent on a number of factors, but it's always best to start small, because the larger team gets, the more complex it gets, the more issues you have to deal with that is likely to distract from the real issue that you want to deal with, which is business. The reality is that we live in a world where we can outsource for talent. Depending on the nature of their business, you can always hire influencers. You can recruit them, and they can push your business to the world. And as they push the business, they can be commissioned based on earnings. So, as I say, it has to be flexible and based on your needs.
All right. So, against the background of that, I take that as a reasonable point. That's a reasonable point on this question, and it's something that we keep working on. And I think Joy summarized as well. It needs to be organic. All right. Are the hands still up on the same point? Because I'm about to go to the final point of the evening. Yes. Did I miss anyone?
An observation, Sean.
Yes, Trevor. Thank you for coming. Yes, man. How can I forget? How are you doing, sir? Blessings. Thank you for joining.
Good. So just coming in on the tail end of this.
We have had a riveting conversation this evening, but nothing that you are not used to. Yes.
Yeah. The question I would have, is what exactly is a team?
Yes.
What defines a team?
Yes.
I mean, I'm just curious to get feedback as to what does the group define a team as, because something that
Probably the naive one is the naive one says, "Oh, a set of people who work together," but it could be more scientific than that. More scientific.
Well, okay. So if you start with a set of people that work together, okay, what is working together? You see, like I get a sense that when we say team, when we say startup, we tend to bog ourselves down with these people having to be in the same place.
Yes, they could be. Well, true.
And you know, creating a startup in this day and age ought not to be burdened by people being in the same place to create a team. So all aspects of what you need must really be based on the capabilities that is required. So, so you have a team, and all a team really is an organizational structure that's on paper, defining, you know, who is CEO, CIO, who what. These are all just little labels that form this nice organizational chart. None of those people have to be in the same room. None of them have to be in the same country to form a company or a team. So I think the important thing is, one, understand that a team is made up of people qualified to do a particular task.
Excellent point.
All right. When you get over that, the real question that people have is, are those people who make up the team people you can trust to do the task? All right. Do you need to be able to trust them, or do you need them to be able to do the task? Right? Because again, just like, you know, this whole idea that, oh, if you're going to start a business, it has to be in a building. I mean, you know, when I started my company, and I came with a notion in 2006 that it was going to be entirely virtual, you know, almost everybody says, yeah, that's not going to fly in Jamaica. But, you know, 15 years later, it's still there and it still works. And guess what? Everybody wants to do virtual now.
No choice.
So yeah, but the thing is, they could have always done it.
Yes.
But we were conditioned to think that to succeed, you had to have a building. Yes. You had to have an office. And that was predicated on the fact that, oh, if you want to do business with somebody, they have to come to you. Yes. Versus you going to them, which was really weird as far as I was concerned, because why does somebody need to come to me to do business with me, and it's me want them business?
Right? So in the context, Trevor, of this conversation, you're seeing that there's a science to how you go about the team, which is validity of your point. You need to look at the capabilities of the team. You need to consider that they don't have to be in the same geographic location. Is there any other parameters to these team elements that you would factor?
Yeah. So and again, don't discount the trust factor, right? So as you know, Ketjai was alluding to,
you can't establish trust, and you just start a company. Probably you don't know anybody yet. So you're going to work with larger players who have track records as a part of the trust.
So here's the thing.
Add credibility, Trevor. Add credibility to it.
Well, I was getting there.
All right, go on.
I was getting there. You know, I was saying, you know, as Ketjai was alluding to, you know, there are a lot of services that you can get on, you know, Freelancer, Fiverr, any one of those. The fact of the matter is, do you trust those people to do the job that you ask them for?
Yes. I go and trust Amazon.
Right. So now what you're finding is that a lot of companies who cannot perhaps afford a CIO, they call on the services of virtual CIOs, right? And all that person does is deliver on the tasks that a CIO needs to deliver on. But they do set a fraction of the cost because they're not coming into an office. They don't need benefits and all of that. They're being paid to do a task. So when you think about it, it's really the team is comprised of people who can do a task. Well, they're all over the place. And when you're playing in a global marketplace, who the hell cares where they come from? Your client needs an outcome. Your clients, your customers come to you because they want an outcome. They don't care where your people are, right? So don't constrain yourself to, having to find somebody that is, perhaps in Jamaica.
But that trust piece now becomes very important.
Right. So now the trust and being able to determine whether or not they can actually do the task, which is where the whole credibility part comes in, that becomes very important. And that's where you have to start filtering and researching who you're going to do business with, which is one of the things that those online spaces tries to do, is to provide you with enough information to determine without meeting somebody face to face how credible and how trustworthy they are, which is why they allow people to leave comments and they rank and grade, because that is what is important to establish trust and credibility, right? So that's the kind of stuff you kind of have to look at. But the underlying point though is like, don't constrain yourself to feeling that your team has to be local.
Excellent point.
My entire development team has never been local.
And that's what 876.
Yeah, it's never been local because I could never find people with a mentality and mindset to work in my business model. And because of that,
yes, go ahead, Trevor.
because of that, I could never hire anybody locally. But the advantage I have is that I can scale my development team from 3 people to 50.
Right, whenever you need.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's the luxury I have. But my clients don't care. They just want to know that when we say we're going to deliver it, it's delivered. They don't care if the people are in India, Canada, or Ukraine.
You're a perfect use case. I want to allow Ket Joy to come in, and probably I'll allow her to come in, but I wanted to hear from you how you want to scale the team and most importantly, how you go about finding the team as a startup, because you have been a small startup, no, probably a medium-sized startup company, or even a large one. But how did you get started and make sure that you did the homework to find those team members with the capabilities? I mean, how did that process work in terms of investment of time and effort?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you want to field some other questions before I answer that. But
fair enough. Let me hear Ket Joy, because she probably has a point based on what you said earlier. But that was a follow-up point I would have had. But I allow Ket Joy to go first.
Okay. Hi, Trevor. It's a pity you weren't here for the beginning, because we were talking about one of those first 2 questions at the top about the whole idea of work has changed by force and by might, and all these concrete structures and parking spaces, and that seemed so important not even a year ago, are now superfluous. And I mean, to the point that you're making here, you ever hear back in the day somebody said they have a gig? This is usually a term in entertainment. They have a gig. These people work on their merit. If you're good, you get to play with the band. If you flop, you don't get another work. And it's spun off now and coming into corporate, and you hear about the gig economy, and it sounds like a pejorative, but it isn't. The people on Fiverr, the people you hear Trevor talking about, maybe he's never met them, but based on their merit, they delivered in the time that he said that they're to deliver, so that his client, who doesn't care who did the job, gets his job done. And reviews, this is how credibility comes in now. And whether you are a 5-star developer or you're a 2-star developer, you don't get another job. So people who drive Lyft and Uber, they ask you for a rating before you leave, because if you don't get a good rating, you get kicked off the platform. So this is how we have to start thinking about our startups, and what is happening in North America, in Europe is instructive to Caribbean countries. That this is how we have to start thinking. It's no longer whose son it is or who is in which club over here and which school you went to over there. Can you get the job done within the time frame I'm asking you to do it for the money I'm telling you I have to give it to you to do it? Teams are going to be very fluid as a result of that. Or that very cantankerous term, agile, very fluid. So there is a paradigm shift in the way of work.
Yes.
Paradigm shift. And you see, we're coming back to it again, the credibility. We're still thinking the way we used to think 2019. We're going to have to let go of it. And it's not going back to 2019. When we find out how quickly we can move our businesses along by adopting this new way of thinking of doing business, we will not hanker for 2019 ways of doing business. So how we interpret trust and credibility and accountability, totally different. Thank God for Google Translate. I can talk to this girl from Fiverr who is in Russia. She have 2,000 customers waiting, but I'm waiting on her to do my thing. Because she has the reviews, and I can't talk Russian, but thank God for Google Translate.
That's an interesting approach here. That's a learning point. So you're doing that for your people.
Everything is performance based, and that is where you get your trust, and that is where your credibility hinges.
Yeah. So when you when you speak about performance based, you see, now that's a concept that is not fully understood and in practice locally. Right. So when you know, if you take, for example, government and a good number of private sector entities, performance based and, you know, key performance indicators and those kind of metrics. One of the things that you find happening is everybody talks about it, but when you perform, what happens? Do you get rewarded? The answer in many cases is no. So what's the point? When you perform out there in the global marketplace, you get rewarded. You get rewarded by more customers, more money, good reviews, right? The thing with performance indicators in either government or private sector is most times you get a thank you, job well done, and keep going. But what other rewards do you get? And as a result, the mindset is, well, it really doesn't matter if I perform. Nah, I get nothing out of it. So what's the point in going to work? So what that means is we need to have a fundamental shift in what do the powers that be call it? Meritocracy. So that, look, if you perform, you are rewarded, right? And that changes a culture, because if you don't feel like you're going to get anything when you do a good job, then you just, you know, won't do a good job, right? So that is something that we have to kind of, you know, overcome. It's good to say that, you know, you have a group of performers, but the fact of the matter is, what do you do for them when they perform? So that's one major thing that you have to look at. Performance metrics and reward for performance. The other thing, though, that I kind of wanted to just answer really quickly was a question Sean had about, you know, how we started and stuff. At the time, this is in 2006, a lot of, you know, India was really coming out of a situation where there was a massive shift from, you know, Indians or the tech industry in India being just BPO driven, to companies forming that utilize the knowledge of all those people in the BPO sector, and also the burgeoning programming space, because they literally grew programmers in India. So there were dozens or hundreds of companies popping up. We did our homework on them. We've gone through a number of companies, but what we wanted to do was determine who could build in the languages and platforms we wanted. And we simply did our homework, called them up, talked to them, and then gave them a job, and saw how they handled it. And if we were okay, then we signed an agreement, and the agreements are what are very important. Now we suffer from that here because we don't like to sign agreements or contracts. We like word of mouth, and that leads to people having arguments, which gets you nowhere. The legal aspect of business is something that also needs to be understood. So you need to have contracts with these entities that protect you and them, and clearly outline the work that has to be delivered and how it must be delivered. So so we went through about 3 or 4 different companies, and we learned a lot about dealing with companies in India and in Canada. And after a while, you find that 1 or 2 times you get into a couple of issues on a couple of jobs, and you know what you need to do the next time around. So that's really what we had to put up with, because back then there were no Fivers or freelancers or anything. You're going and having cold calls with these companies that you research on the internet, right? So so I think one of the things that is very important that the luxury exists now is to do the homework, look at the reviews, look at the ratings, and make sure that you engage people who can do precisely what you need them to do for and on your team, because that is extremely important for you to get that job done. So I think that's really how we yeah, that's really how we.
I love that approach. So you were not constrained by the fact that you need to select local. You look for high value you want to bring on board, and you high value.
Yeah, we weren't constrained by that. I would have preferred to have hired locally, but at the time, the culture and mentality of people locally was still, traditional. I mean, it was a hell of a thing to get people to understand that work is something you do, not somewhere you go. And even today, that's still a thing. So I mean, that's been ingrained in many people's heads since the colonial times. But you kind of have to get away from that, especially if you playing in the global marketplace, because now if I want a programmer and I can't find them here, I find them elsewhere, and I can do it real easy. I would prefer to keep the money in Jamaica, but if I can't find who I need here with the mentality that I need based on my business model, I go elsewhere, and it's as simple as that. So in tech,
that leads to a very interesting point that you just raised on this team's issue. As universities, academic institutions, including my own, the issue of graduates coming in to be hired in, let us say, your kind of organization or Cavell's organization. That team member coming in might be somebody who probably still needs some mentor. Is it a reasonable point to say that when you have startup companies and you're going for high value projects and high value outcomes, is it that students just graduating may not make the cut? That your companies don't have the time to deal with mentorship and internship? somebody can deliver based on price and market and outcomes. I'd love to hear a little more about that, Daniel, because a very valuable point you just raised about the pipeline of talent, and if talent can't meet the requirement, you can go elsewhere, to the global marketplace. That could decimate the universities, if you ask me. If we
I can respond.
if we do not have the right type of response to give to companies like yours who are the ones hiring now, and as a big replacement for the big blue chips. So the corporates of the NCBs and the cable and wireless, etc. Many talent have to now function in this bigger ecosystem. I would love to hear this it's your report on this issue of the teams, it's drawing on other things. Who would like to take the floor in answering that one? Was that
I'll just give you a little example. Yes, give you a little example. I commissioned some new graduates from Karamak animation students to design a book.
Sorry, go ahead. Joy?
Oh, okay. So some animation students, new graduates, I asked them to design a book cover for me. And I asked them how much you would charge me for the book cover. And it is just, doodly, something like doodly. And I really wanted to give them the job because they were new. They need to start and make their own little money, and so that this animation thing is viable. I wish Conrad was still here. Guys gave me back a quote of $200. So that same Russian chick I'm telling you about that have the 2,000 people waiting on her, you know what her price is? $20. Know what her reviews are? 5-star, all the way. $20, same cover. So they're pricing themselves out of the market because they're entering a space of which they only know theory. In practice, these are your competition now. They're in Russia, they're in India. I like how Trevor said they practically they're growing programmers in India. So if you're graduating come November from UE or UTech with a programming degree, boy, you have a tall tree to climb. So you have to be competitive. Yes, you might need $200 for your own purposes, but if I can get the job done outside of my country for $20 and I'm a startup with limited capital, guess who I'm going with? So hopefully when you're teaching these students, these undergrads that are coming out, you're giving them a real world experience of what to expect and how they're going to have to position themselves. Take the 9-to-5 job, but like Cavell, you're going to get on Fiverr and do your 5 to 10, getting $20 to get yourself off. You're going to become entrepreneurs as well.
Well, we hit on another point here, which has been a white elephant in this room, in that the graduates and the students leaving the universities, if they can't meet the likes of what Trevor is asking for and otherwise, they will not even be a part of the small teams or the large teams, which is why the mindset of the students and the graduates leaving higher education institutions have to be one that is hungry, for want of a better word, to be able to fit into the grand scheme of things. There's no more the large corporates and blue chips that would hire 50, 100 at a time and that kind of thing. Those larger companies have become smaller in operation, or they are outsourced, or they are no longer here. There are smaller startups like yourselves who will be hiring, and you're looking for the best deal for $1. So where does that leave the graduates? Where does that leave the students? Or this is Caribbean Technology Thought Leadership.
You know why that's a problem, Sean?
It's a problem.
You know why you're asking that question?
Yes.
Because you're not teaching any of them to go out there and become the employer. And I tell you my signature phrase
we have changed that, Trevor. We have changed that. We have a new degree that actually talks about this whole space of the technology.
Yeah, but you're just starting that.
That's
right.
Correct.
You're just starting that. But we have constantly been teaching people to go and work on the plantation instead of building their own. Right. So one of the things that we have to seriously entertain, because this is going to happen, it has started globally, and we're trying to develop this kind of thing in Jamaica as well, is, and we spoke about it a couple of sessions ago, where the greatest disservice in tertiary institutions is the fact that you have every ingredient and group to form a business, but you never let them work together. Everybody's on campus, marketers, business people, accountants, engineers, everybody's on campus, but they never work together. Now, because of that, there is no appreciation, understanding, or even zeal to work in teams, in diverse teams. Because the only team that you work in is a group of people that do the same thing what you do, right? So projects are not based on a diverse team of people of varying disciplines. It's always the same discipline. So what are you going to learn about teamwork and business from that? You don't. Right? So these are some of the things that we have to fix, because what is going to happen, and as like I said, I started happening already. You're going to have what they call a different version of a micro business, right? And that different version of a micro business is going to spawn what's called micro networks, right? What those are is small businesses or micro businesses are going to partner with other businesses that do the things that they need on the team. So a startup conceivably will look like a group of small or micro companies, each company doing a particular thing. So you're going to partner with a marketing company to do the marketing. You're going to partner with a technology company to do the tech. You're going to partner with perhaps a manufacturing company to manufacture the goods. And these are all small companies that by themselves do a single task, but when they partner, you start to see this massive network of very small businesses all doing these interesting things. We don't typically see a lot of that happening right now locally. You go and you pay a man for do a work for you. You don't partner with him, because in our headspace, our kind not into partnering, right? Which is why we don't progress the way we should. So when you look at some of the Asian conglomerates in Jamaica, it's all built on partnering, right? So we have to inculcate a mindset that, look, we're going to work in teams, diverse teams, but we're also going to promote the fact that these teams are comprised of individuals or groups with disciplines that you can partner with. So you have to start teaching people the value of partnering.
Yes.
Right? And I think that's going to become more and more important, because, because Joy is telling you there that, look, I can't charge 200 when I'm going to do the same work for 20. Right?
But this is a very profound conversation we're having. I have a follow-up and counterpoint to all of this.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah. So when you're starting to look at those things, in order for those people to survive,
yes,
you have to be able to get the 2,000 clients. All right. Well, how are you going to get that? Networking and partnerships. All right. And that's how you'll get maybe 50 instead of 200. Right? You can charge a 50 instead of 200. Why? Because I might not want to wait in the line, but you will pay $30 more to get to know.
Yeah.
So okay,
right?
so hold on. So this point about teams is driving us into a conversation which I probably have to say to my co-host here, Dr. Camp. We might need a whole chapter on this by itself because it presents a demand-supply problem or the demand-supply shift. In other words, we are training graduates to come out and work in teams, either to start up their own companies, but which you are saying is a failing on across the university systems, which there has to be some merit in that. And then the youngsters who are leaving the universities to even work within an existing team, there's the economies of scale. You, Trevor, as a businessman, or Joy as a businesswoman, will look for economies of scale, probably in India or in Russia, which will allow your business to have a return on investment. The cost of labor, which is a function of that return on investment, which is the graduates from the institutions, right, who will provide that labor pool to your business, may not necessarily be able to compete with India in terms of those economies of scale. Although we are near shore to what probably your business might be in the US, but you might agree that you take that economies of scale in that jurisdiction over paying the $200, which the Jamaican is going to say. I'm playing devil's advocate here. The Jamaican is going to say, but listen, this is the cost of living here in Jamaica. And you hire me to do something in a team with you, you have to pay at that prima facie rate to allow me to live. I know many of the Jamaican are struggling now.
So let me stop you right there.
Stop me there, yes.
And you want me to tell you why that is a problem for them?
Yes.
Because they're taught that they must work for one person.
Yes, yes. Or they believe.
And if you're not taught to work, right, then you're going to go and work on one plantation. The chick in Russia is not working on a plantation because she have 2,000 clients.
Yes, I could be all over the world. That's what
right?
Worldwide.
You are teaching people to work for one client at a time because you just said, you're hiring me to do this job. Okay.
Well, this is
that don't mean I can't work for somebody else while I'm working for you. It's called management of time. Let me give you a story. I asked a colleague of mine to line me up with some talented people out of Heart because I needed, I wanted again to try to hire some people locally, right? And he said, all right, cool. I have 2 youth where I suppose you can, do your kind of work. Okay, good. I go and meet with them, talking to them, and they were like, yeah, everything good, that. And I got to a point where I said, look, my business model is a little bit different. We're all virtual. I don't care where you work from. You can work wherever you want at whatever time. All you have to do is deliver on your milestones on time. They're like, oh, cool. Yeah, we like that. And then it came to the discussion, okay, how I get paid? I say you get paid based on a project. So every project you do or are doing, that's how you get paid. Oh, okay, all right. So how much I get paid for a project? I say, well, depends on the project, but you can get, upwards of 100,000 for a project. Well, how long a project lasts? Project could last, 3 weeks, 2 months. And them say, oh, scene. I said, let me ask you something. How much you make now? And I said, well, they make, they might say they make 60,000 a month. I say, so how much you make a year? Well, we might make $1 million a year. Okay. I said, you can get 2 projects that pay you that in 6 months. They're like, wow, yo, that's serious. You know what the next question was? And I always tell this story. You know what the next question was? Which blew my mind. So what would I do for the other 6 months?
Oh.
And I had to stop. I was like, what do you mean? Yes. Well, no, yes, I would I do, we could have get 2 projects in 6 months and get the money there. Well, what would I do for the other 6 months? Now you see the mentality prevailing there?
Yes, the mindset there.
Because
But
thinking
I would not say
that
the
he's
university
coming.
put that on students. I think to defend.
No, that's a culture. That we have not. That we have not.
Yeah.
That we have not.
That's sociology.
Cut out of the minds of. What am I going to do for the other 6 months? Maybe 2 other projects I make twice what you're making now.
Yes.
Who knows? Or maybe you take the rest of the 6 months off and take a break. No, you know what? That stems from I must work for you and you must take care of me and manage my money and my time for me. Right? That is what's coming out of university.
But I want to hasten to the university's defense that it is not the university that is actually teaching people to be that way. I think there are many students who leave the university with the mindset that you need, but they get grabbed up so fast that those who are of the mindset you speak of are the ones who are struggling to play catch up as it relates
so here's the flip side of that argument, Sean. The university is not teaching them not to be like that.
Yeah,
but shouldn't they start from early? Because if we have our children at the
Absolutely.
We can't wait until they get to university to be teaching them that mindset.
No, you're talking.
It's too late at that point.
No, you're talking.
Yeah,
it needs to start from primary school.
Yeah, so
Mister.
And Key and Joy. Okay.
I beg.
Hold on,
please.
let me take the order. Hold on, I'll cover you the order. Cabell, you made the point. Then Arnett.
Yes, I had a couple points, right? So I agree with Kes in regards to, most of us as startups, we start with a purpose. It's not just about making money. So we want to make a difference. Yes. So we definitely want to give these university students and these graduates an opportunity. But again, as Kes mentioned, they tend to price out of the market. They price themselves out of the market. So it's very difficult. As it relates to partnership as well, I wanted to make a point. As a startup, that's one of the first things that I wanted to do. I wanted to partner with other organizations, to see how we could help each other and how we could grow. But then you do have some persons with the competition mindset. They don't want to partner. They feel like everything is a competition. And then for those that you may be able to identify that you can partner with, they don't see the big picture. They only see a one work. They don't think that, okay, if you partner with this person, yes, you may give them this service at a discounted rate. But based on this partnership, this can be a guaranteed income. This is something that you can, continue to earn from. So I think that's one of the things.
Don't partner with them. Don't partner with them.
They don't have that mindset. Exactly.
Right. So that's the real challenge, finding like-minded partners. Don't try force partnership with somebody where can partner with you. Don't try to partner with somebody who's competing with you. Right. That makes no sense. Right? I mean, we typically love, again, the story. A man set up a fruit stall on the side of the road and start make money. You know what his competition does? Set up right beside it. And then wonder why, boy, them now make the same amount of money as the brother when him did just start. Duh. That is why on Reddit Road they have 10 pan chicken man.
We still know the original pan chicken man though.
Yeah, but what did the other 9 do to his revenue? Right? Don't partner with a bunch of people where I do the same thing as you know. You don't partner with those. Don't partner with people who don't get where you're coming from and where you're trying to go.
This is a profound conversation, but it seems like we can't finish it. Listen, this piece here about the teams and where it actually has a more profound discussion around economies of scale, demand and supply of where the labor market for tech talent is going. My 2018 book on our Caribbean Silicon Valley had touched it a little bit in terms of the space, but I see in 2021 that it is a persistent problem that we'll have to have a segment on it by itself. let me hear, Kevin, were you finished with your points? I saw Dr. Campbell, then Ketjaw in that order. But these are some very riveting conversations, yes.
Yeah, so I definitely wasn't suggesting that you partner with these people. I'm just saying this is what is out there. So that was my point. And if we want to change your mindset, we have to start early. We can't wait until students get to the university level because they already have that, as you mentioned, that plantation mentality, waiting for persons to take care of them. I've never had that mindset growing up. So I always thought about how I can, do something for myself. And so as early as I can remember, even when I was a university student, I was doing part-time things. I was making money on the side. I was doing I was transcribing and I was doing all of this, making resumes, printing stuff for people. So I'd never had that mindset, even while I was at university, to think that once I complete my degree, I'm just going to work for someone. I always had the idea that after working for a number of years, I'm going to start my own business. So we have to create and we have to inculcate in our students from early that mindset of, becoming the employee and not just becoming employed.
That's from the kindergarten, because at the university phase is too late. I will eventually ask Theodore to weigh in as a student himself on the call, but I want to take quickly the order that I see here.
Okay, my time?
Yes, Dr. Campbell.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to respond to Trevor's suggestion about we have so many of the disciplines at the university and we don't teach people to work together. So I want to propose on Caribbean thought leadership that we move to get our program directors across some key schools to implement this in our major project. That's the easiest one I see that we can do it with. And if we do that, then that can be a start to get them working together. All right, so that will solve that problem. Next one is a lot of the problem that we're talking about. We don't study our people. We need social anthropologists to study our people. Now, the mindset among our people is that we work for people. We like leaders who are strong, who can humor worship, who can command respect. So we like that kind of leader. I wouldn't use the word, the D word, but that's the kind of leader that we seem to respect and we follow them blindly. Even if we're not comfortable, we follow them blindly. So it is a mindset among the people that they get a skill and they go work for somebody. It's a minority mindset, however, for people who create business and are entrepreneurial. And you don't find it right across the country. You generally tend to find this, and you have to go into certain parts of the country, like you go into the rural areas. So if you were to go into, this is just my observation, not a study that I've done. My observation about persons coming from, especially areas like the county of Cornwall, they tend to be entrepreneurial, fierce entrepreneurs, want to do business, want to own business, they want to do things for themselves. And some years ago, before Carl Stone died, Carl Stone suggested that we should have divided the country into 3 economic zones and give them kind of self-government. Let them set them on tax rules and incentives to get people to move, let them compete against themselves, because by nature we are competitive. The parishes have not captured that point of view. They don't even use their parish councils and use that as a way to attract people to their parishes and to create investment opportunities. So that's also part of the thing. So what is our state of nature? Our state of nature is that our education system prepares people to go work for people. So I believe that's where the resource is. So for us, those of us with the mindset, the minority mindset that are creating a business, how can we take these and employ them? How can we do that? How can we take them and employ them? Because try as much as we can. This has been tried over 40 odd years of my living experience of people trying to tell our people, you need to be entrepreneurial, you need to be self-driven, you need to be doing that. And it worked for a little time and then it gets back into the same groove. So it is cultural, and I think we need to study our people in depth and understand because in their DNA.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
But Doc, you know, I always get controversial with this.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do no more studies. Whole heap of studies have been done. Everybody know what the issue is. Everybody know the issue.
Trevor, I don't mean no big study, no, you know what I mean.
No, but we don't need to do no more studies.
What we know about
more than enough studies have been done.
Craft around that.
Right, more than enough studies have been done. With the studies still with blue, right? With the studies still with blue, right? And the knowledge and understanding is there, right? What may change over time is what is happening and impacting the economy, right? Based on what's happening globally and so on. But we have done whole heap of studies to understand. Look, you speak about the county of Cornwall, right? When you look at something like a farmer, right? Because we have whole heap of them that side, and when you look at somebody like a farmer, who does a farmer work for?
Himself.
Exactly. Well, and we did have whole heap of them. But farming right now is not cool. How did that happen? How did that happen? Because the entrepreneurial farmer somehow determined that his child not going to be a farmer. How did that happen? When did farming become like this job that is not cool? Right? How did that happen? I mean, seriously. Right? When did it become a bad thing to be a farmer? Right? That person that doesn't work for anybody else but themselves and feeds a nation. When did that happen?
These are all part of the teams that we would want to have in local teams to be working in these startups.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When did it become cool for Grace Kennedy to import coconut water from where? Taiwan, that's where Singapore or Taiwan, I want to play. When did that become cool? Thailand, sorry, yes, there you go. When did that become cool?
After the disease destroyed our coconut industry.
Can I interject here, gentlemen? And I promise you.
Let the lady interject at this point, yes.
And I promise you, I promise you, hand raised to God, I'm not joking. I'm a sociologist and I studied sociology of development and cultural anthropology. And I know about the coconut disease because my father-in-law was right there when it happened because he used to work for RADA. I'm not kidding. We're not going down that road. Let me tell you something, guys. Studies, you don't need any more studies. Trevor is right. But Dr. Campbell is also correct. The studies are in the libraries of UAE, UTech, and other bastions like that. Problem is, all of that knowledge is in the researcher's head. And whoever their subjects were when they were studying them to get illustrious PhDs off their heads. But it was never, you see, this is the biggest thing I have the issue with these studies, you know. You enter a research space and you will go to a bunch of farmers down Manchester and you'll sit there with them for 2 years, and you'll take all that raw data, and you'll get yourself a PhD, but you do not go back to the farmers and says, this is what I learned, this is what you need to be doing, this is what needs to change. They would have to come to that realization by themselves. And if they don't, my daughter will never become a farmer. This life is too hard. Go on to Kingston, go get a office work. Yes, go work for somebody. Go work for somebody. Stay in the AC. Get the house at Greater Portmore, because this life is too hard. Pray their last day, mash up road, no water, no rain for the last 6 months, and no help from the government that's supposed to help you to feed the nation.
This is Caribbean Technology Thought Leadership on Sunday evening. This has been a rough conversation.
Hold on, Dr. Campbell. Hold on, Dr. Campbell. There is a book. Hold on, Dr. Campbell, I beg you, I beg. There's a book called The Sociology of Work that I read. And when I read it, I cried when I read that book. Because let me tell you something. I said it before, Trevor never heard when I said it. I said corporate Jamaica is the last plantation. It's the last plantation in this country. Let me tell you something.
Technology, workforce, and teams. You know, this one is a really riveting point, boys. Not
yeah. Dr. Campbell said it.
I have Theodore sitting down in the room, you know, and he's still here. I
think Theodore might be shaking in his boots, or might be in a fetal position.
No, Theodore. Say he has a family business, but I eventually would want him, after probably Keisha, to wait to sort of quickly tell me what is his view as a graduate leaving to go and join a small team or a big team for projects. How does his colleagues look at this?
I know you have to move to Theodore and Keisha.
I'm waiting. Go ahead, Dr.
Here, Professor. I'm saying here. I have a friend who have been studying Jamaica for the last 20-something years, and he has intensively studied the whole Bluefields Bay area, Professor Wedenaya, and the depth of research that has gone in there. And I'm talking about things that go on shelf now. I'm talking about things that get implemented into changing culture of people and driving what people do. That's the kind of research I'm talking about. I'm talking about people just go do a research and forget about it. Talking about action type of research, all right?
You're talking about participation, learning, action, PLA.
Right? So that's the kind I'm talking about. And we will soon see those results are going to be published in websites and books and all of that for people to understand and use and help to transform their local communities.
One of the things that this pandemic has forced us to do, thank you, Dr. Campbell, thank you. One of the things this pandemic has forced us to do is to change our minds, because it's been forced upon us. These are things that we knew in the periphery, but nothing came to disrupt the status quo and the order of things until now. And so now we have to pivot, forcibly pivot, and confront these things. So a forum like this is so instructive. But it's only how many of us in here? 8.
Yeah, but we have a lot more to be doing. And by the way, we might be 8 on an evening like this, but I can tell you over the last 6 weeks we have been doing this. We have had at least over 60 persons of different backgrounds who have been weighing in. And I tell you, it has to be more, because the conversation has to really continue. This one point on teams is a non-trivial point to how the startup will work. I want to take your point, Joy. Keisha Gate, you wanted to make a point as well?
Prof,
yes,
just to say real quickly, I have to jump off. Funnily enough, I have another Zoom meeting with the Minister of Education for Bahamas.
Bring these points to our
thanks for enduring my rambling. So again, look forward to the next one, eh?
Yes, man. Bring some nice words to the minister for me. Tell her that we need this kind of conversation with her as well, because it is impacting her in a serious way. Good one, Trevor. Good one.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye.
All right, thank you. Keisha Gay?
Yes, what I was saying is that sometimes we do have some of these students that have the entrepreneurial spirit, and sometimes they don't have the supportive environment that doesn't coincide that they have. So sometimes the educators have to step in to encourage them, because I've had it on several occasions where I have to encourage them because parents don't believe in them taking that route. So sometimes you have to step in and give them the kind of support for the entrepreneurial spirit that they have.
But a lot of them migrating, we don't discuss that part. A lot of them migrating.
That's another thing.
They're not sitting here to wait on Trevor or Joy or Sean or anybody to work in our startup companies or necessarily one of their own, where they think they can earn more dollars in the greenback system. These are things that we don't even discuss, because as the semester draws to a close and the summer comes up, a lot of them, even COVID or no COVID, are moving to North America and Canadian shores to work with the view of them getting into that system to actually engage their own startups. I mean, we have even had that type of argument, but it could be a whole segment by itself. I tell you, it could be a whole segment by itself indeed. But Theodore, thank you so much, Keisha. Theodore, do you have any words on this issue of the teams? I would love to get at least the last student view here, and then some wrap-up comments about how we endure going forward. But Theodore, any view on that?
All right, good night again. I must say this has been a really good conversation amongst such great minds. As it relates to teams, for me, team is a group of persons who communicate well, who is able to work together and can provide valid output. And choosing a team should be a very significant thing, a very important thing, because the people who you choose should value their work, as everyone said. They should be able to do their work and provide valid output. So yes, as it relates to the other matters, I as
your colleagues in class and so on, when they leave UTech, are they looking to start up a company and go and work in teams in these companies? Or are they looking to something? Are they going to work in other people's local companies and teams? Or most of them want to migrate? Just a sense of where you think their minds are.
All right, so I was just about to touch that topic, because as a student representative myself, being amongst the skit students, the most I can hear from them, to be honest, is I want to work at Digital, I want to work at Flow, or maybe a company that can give me enough money so that I can pay for the things that I want. So the mindset is actually working for someone that can pay me. I personally did a feasibility study amongst peers and also the students, and to see where their mindset were. And their mindset was not entrepreneurial. Most persons said they will create an application that does this and that, but they're just going to create an application that does this. If you should ask them, do you see this as an like a full-time job where you can invest most of your time to gain most profit from it? It's no. They're still hell-bent on the fact that they need to be in a high company to be recognized, to be paid for and recognized for their input or their talent. So the mindset is still in the framework of working for someone.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Theodore, because that is a thought. Mr. Graham, rest of us on the staff team, you hear the comments that the student has raised. I must tell you, it is something that not just UTech alone, but every other institution has to pay attention to, because the market in 2021 has changed. The traditional methods of work are not what they used to be, but new opportunities are presenting themselves for teams to work across the globe and to have more opportunities than one. I think we have to have a special segment with more students involved and the community involved about this whole work workforce and how teams should be engaged. So this has been a really very interesting discussion tonight, I must tell you, and I'm really thankful for your comments so far. As I want to wrap up in one last point. Endurance. How are we going to endure going forward in 2021? We're going to run startup. So we're going to do startup from Theodore to Arnett to Stanford, myself, everybody. Let us say we're all going to do startups. How do we endure? Because it's not easy. I've seen this set of issues here. What is your single set of formula for endurance? A single formula for endurance. How are we going to move forward in 2021? This is concerned. If we want to do a startup, this is where we should go. How would you sum it?
Can I say something?
Yes, Kevin.
I remember when Art said you have to fail fast and recover fast. And I keep coming back to that point because endurance or stamina in tech startups especially is problematic because the technology goes faster than you would ever imagine. So you might take a year to come up with an app, and by the time you launch it, there are 3 out there already coming out of various countries. And you're not first, and you don't know how to market it, and you might end up wasting your time. There's another thing that I learned in my avenue of business, that you're gonna lose money. You're gonna lose money in the first couple of years or so. And I'm reminded of the Amazon business model, which is not in any economics book because it defies everything in every economics test, where he went to his money people and told them they will not be making a profit for the first 10 years. And they still invested in him. So, yeah, the endurance aspect. We're not gonna make any money. We might fail, but we have to rebound as long as we learn from the mistakes that we made. And you ever see how a baby fall late? If a baby fall backwards, it's only something innate would teach them how to put their hands back before they hit the head. We're gonna have to learn to know how to do that and learn how to fall and get up and pivot and be agile and to form alliances here and abroad so that we can be as malleable as we possibly can. And maybe after 5 years, when it gets bigger than you probably know, maybe you have achieved all your markers. You have gotten the house, you have paid off those loans, you have taken care of your children's school money, even if they wanted to go to medicine or neurosurgery. You might sell it up. You might sell it up.
Excellent.
So Mr. Bezos is leaving in July. There's nothing else for him to buy. There's nothing else for him to prove. So you might sell it up to somebody else and start another one. Who knows?
Yes, he starts all over. Yes. All right, that's a good set. Well, you covered quite a few elements of what endurance should be. Any other word on endurance going forward in 2021? Joy gave some very good ones a while ago. Any other comments on the privacy endurance and the tech startup scenery moving forward? Any other comments?
Mr. Thorpe, I have to go now, so I have to give my final
input. Thank you very much.
So, well, before I leave, I have to say I don't blame the university as Mr. Forrest did. I mean, you can drop through a couple more modules that can emphasize on entrepreneurship instead of entrepreneurship in and of itself.
Yes.
But it's a hereditary mindset, from what I believe, because personally I'm in St. Mary. I'm a banana boy. Have my farms and everything.
Yes.
And my father has a mechanical business.
Yes.
It's going on for years, not much progression. But at the same time, he was able to get the funds for me to go to university without going on a student loan. I thank him for that. But his mindset is for me to be something greater than him that is not within his field. So he wants me to be a doctor, He wanted me to be a lawyer. He wanted me to do all of the big
Oh, you're in
things
IT
without
now,
thinking. Yes, and I am in IT. So
yes, sir.
I'm not going to blame the university for what is going on for most of the students. Yes, naturally the students blame the university, but from standing back and looking at what is going on, it's deeper than what we think it is.
That is correct.
So as it relates to what you asked about endurance now, for businesses these days, it's the strength to progress. You have to be strong when you're in the market. You have competitors, you have a lot of people going up against that are even way better than you, are more elevated than you. So you have to have endurance, you have to come up with great better thinking, you have to put yourself in a position in a win-lose mentality, because it's not all the time you're going to win. And when you do lose, you can brush off and start back. So I think it's a strength to endure, to progress.
Well said, Theodore. Well said.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good one in St. Mary, Theodore. Thank you.
Thanks, Theodore. Before you go, we'd love to definitely connect and have further conversations with you. I have a program coming up called Career Conversations, and this is definitely the sort of convo that I want to have as it relates to parents deciding, what they want their kids to do in the future and how that decision impact our economy and, the students themselves. So feel free to connect with me. My contact is in the chat.
Okay, great. I feel like I'm mini Thorpe. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, we're just about wrapping up. Any more comments, colleagues, on this endurance? I think at the end of the day, what is going to allow the startups to survive is endurance. And Trevor has been at it, he said, probably over 14 years. He has found his own method, and many others have, like Cavell and so on. So endurance is in fact an approach to engage. Any last comments? This has been a very good Caribbean Technology Thought Leadership session.
Just commend you, Dr. Thorpe and Dr. Campbell, for this forum and for inviting me, because I'm cognizant of the fact that UTech is a public university, and the underlying thing is, you take your orders from your bosses, which is government, and they will tell you, listen, we need to focus on this particular topic because they have built into their budgets and their way forward and their programs, their ministerial programs, what they want to focus on for the next 5-10 years. That's why they have demographers. And they will run a program, but you will see, because you have the students in front of you, you will see a shift in the culture, in the world of work. That's why the government needs you to say, listen, we need to modify the programs that we're sending the kids out on, because it needs to change.
Yes, we have been doing that, but I think we have to have a program just to look at that whole workforce and that workforce demographics.
The sociology of work, it has changed.
Sociology of work, because what is going on now is that I don't think the case is that students leaving the university wanting to work in teams, companies, are just concerned about that they should be working in Jamaica with local companies. They are looking at their whole life and lifestyle and their plans for the future. And therefore they may say, well, okay, they will be able to raise families in Jamaica. Probably that's a concern they have. Or they want to have a brighter, want to have a different outlook of the world. And probably their families are encouraging them that they need to travel abroad first.
Yes. And I don't think we should fear it, guys. Sending our children outside of the country, there are more Jamaicans outside than inside, and we cycle in and out at will. We come and go as we please. And you can only benefit from those global lessons that are out there, bring them back here to enrich our own space. But somebody in the chat said that kind of thing is not UTech's problem, That is not UI's problem, That's a parental thing. How are you raising your kids? How are you raising these children? I tell my children they need to have 3 careers before they retire.
Yes.
And they think it's the norm because they see us do it.
Yes, exactly.
And I brainwashed them. They have to go to university, but I didn't tell them that. I put a picture of my graduation, undergrad picture in his wallet. And every time him open to get him lunch money, him see it. You have to know how to send the cues to the children. Whatever he wants to do, it's up to him.
Excellent point. Well,
But we have to change the narrative from their
The hidden curriculum.
Yes, man.
Listen, colleagues, this has been a wonderful Caribbean Technology Thought Leadership Forum on Sunday, 7th. It gets exciting with each week. And we have discussed this week this whole space of the technology startups and where they're heading in this pandemic. I tell you, you have to listen to it in its entirety and keep commenting at the end of the post. It has been a wonderful evening, colleagues. I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for turning out this afternoon. It's already 8 p.m. way after the curfew. So I think we have done about, this has been one of our longer sessions, but well worth it, I must admit. Well worth it, and it has been well participated in respect of the issues that were raised. So I want to thank you all again, and we'll be reaching out as usual. Cavell, I think I sent this out to almost every group that I had in the space. Which of the groups you saw this coming from?
Actually, I was invited by Dr. Forrester.
Maybe okay. So it would have dropped into the the alumni. Thank you so much for coming as well.
Right, it was such a pleasure. Hope I will get an invite for the next one.
Yes. So where are you now presently? You're here in Jamaica?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yes, you should actually tune in for the next one. So yes, we do them weekly, so we are very thankful when people participate and we get all this wonderful feedback. Ket Joy, as usual, he always know how to turn up things, right? And Ket Joy, it's a very interesting conversation today. So have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week, and see you at the next session next weekend, June the 13th, and the invitations will be sent out in short order. We don't disclose before we come to the session what we'll be talking about, but look forward to the next interesting topic in the space of Caribbean technology thought leadership. And we again thank you for the participation this evening. I will now stop the recording, stop sharing,